Welcome to Self Perfected.
Oh,
Ooh,
all
is this the
right.
real recording?
yes, that's
Zoom
real
has got
recording.
me tricky. Let's go. New week, new
All right.
events.
Yeah, we're live. We're good.
Non-stop stream. I get a non-stop stream of my current events from you guys. So
Dude, okay, so much has happened. I think VP pick was announced since last week. Um, and a lot of people with their conspiracy theories online or whatever about like the assassination attempt. But I think the thing that I really saw or that I wanted to talk about was because I just finished listening to that podcast that you sent about they were basically talking about the VP pick and what that implies for this next presidency and the political climate, I guess, of everything that's going on and what we can expect. And it has a lot to do with, like you had shared this point of like, yeah, this is what Katie was bringing up about the Leopold Aschenbrenner stuff, right? And
Because Katie's whole point, like I think she talked about this on the podcast when
Mhm.
she came on recently. The point about how with the what she learned from the Ashenbrenner point was just that like the race is on for AI. They want to get rid of all the green energy bullshit regulations. They want to basically like how the whole nation was galvanized about the space race, like we got to get to the moon, and it was like the thing that we were going to focus on, right?
Sure,
It's
sure.
like that's the new thing of that,
Yeah.
basically, right? And so and I mean there's so many points you can look at, but I think her basic point was just like they're gonna push for we have to dominate AI, and so therefore to do that you have to get a nation like going together as one in total unison. It's like a mastermind. You have to create a mastermind if you want to create something, right? Massive, right?
right, because right now it's clearly a division. I
Right.
mean,
So I mean, do I want China and all these other countries to dominate the AI? No. But at the same time, because like their whole point is we want this to be centralized in the US. We don't want our servers anywhere else. We don't want anybody else to have access to it and so forth, right? But then my question would be, and that's why I sent that Whitney Webb thing you were just referring to.
Yeah.
What is it they want to create with this AI? Because it sounds great. Like, yeah, we need to have the AI. We don't want China to have it. But like, so we're going to galvanize our nation, our people, to make sure that the US dominates AI. But do the people get the AI? Like, is it like we own it? Is it like it's about us and best for us? Or
Yeah,
what will this
no,
AI
it's
be used for?
right, exactly. And
yeah,
that's like a
can it
lot of
even
what
be
she was
that
bringing up.
with our laws in place? It's just
No.
going to benefit big tech.
But what's the purpose of it? Why do they want to create it so bad?
Well, I mean, what do they say? Like that $1 trillion cluster and the Project Stargate. What is like the actual like?
Well, I'll let Drake say, because that's why I sent that Whitney Webb interview, because this really gives you some insight into. There was also another one that I had sent about from her, actually, the same recently, another one. I don't know if I sent it to you guys,
No.
maybe I sent it to the other chat, where she was talking about BlackRock specifically and how Larry Fink, he wants to be able to have total predictive power over his investments. I mean, you think about his investments means literally fucking everything. They want to know, like, at all times, real time, what's my risk?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to have like basically perfect knowledge all the time of every moving
Omnipotent.
piece and what it's doing.
So
You need the AI to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's from the BlackRock perspective.
Well, she was bringing that up of like how they're like simulating brainwaves. They're simulating brainwaves so that they can basically simulate like how will people respond to this, that, whatever, and also simulate the climate and simulate all this stuff so that they can see exactly, okay, we can predict anything. And she was also bringing up this point of like the pre-crime as well. There were some points that I think need to be like laid down before getting into all that.
Sure.
But basically, like what she's bringing through is okay. This pick in JD Vance as the VP is significant because he is really closely tied with Peter Thiel, right?
They were business partners. Like,
Okay, there you go.
yeah. Peter Thiel is PayPal, Palantir, lots of things, you know.
And I think can you describe Palantir? Because from what I understand, it's basically like a DARPA-esque project of like it when we talked about, remember way back, if you haven't listened to this episode, go back and listen to it. It's a really great episode. The dead internet theory episode that we did, right? But we talked about how Facebook was basically like this DARPA project where it's like, you know,
Who was the first outside investor in Facebook?
Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel. Exactly. And
Right.
so
they had something called LifeLog where they wanted to be able to track everybody, and that became, because it's very similar to, I was just making this analogy of like NASA. It's a lot more efficient if it's just public, if it's a commercial endeavor. So that's why you got
yeah,
SpaceX, Blue Origin, all these other things, because like NASA is really limited because of bureaucracy and all these other points.
right.
You put it to the public sector, you can do a lot more quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's where Elon Musk is kind of taking things over there. And then you've got like the CIA or whatever projects like LifeLog, where they're like shut it down, and then immediately Facebook pops up.
Right. Like
Right.
literally
You,
like day that LifeLog dies, Facebook is born. Like
right.
crazy, right?
And then Palantir, as far as I understand, is like, I mean, there may be a lot that it does, but like at a basic level, it's about like threat assessment. And so it's like kind of predicting the movements of things. And I think I heard her when what she said was that it was used during COVID.
She also said it was
yeah,
used during like Iran Contra. Like so basically like
the CIA version, not the Palantir.
Oh, but I thought that was like basically that was like a Palantir started type of project.
Well, Iran Contra was in the 70s.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Palantir is, so the stuff they were doing,
Yeah.
that stuff becomes.
No, but she was saying
Palantir.
no, because she was saying from the 90s, or actually no, she was saying that they had done some sort of in 2008 there was some sort of court hearings or whatever, and they had to shut it down basically so that they didn't have to expose what they were doing with that Contra. So basically, anyway, the point that she was bringing up was it was used against 3 million Americans, right? Like basically, there's 3 million Americans on this list of people that we're keeping track of, and that was, you know, since back then, right?
Right.
And now, you know, you can imagine with Facebook, you're giving them the information that they're seeking. And she was saying how with Palantir, they're doing all these projects where they're doing facial recognition, and it's basically the same thing that we complain about or fearmonger about in China, what they're doing. Oh, we don't want to create that here. That's literally what they're creating. And it's not just here, it's on a global scale. And she was also bringing up the point of like, hey, it's, you know, it's not this just JD Vance, also Sam Altman is also connected with Peter Thiel. And this whole thing that he wants to create with the WorldCoin, or I guess that's what it's called, right? Where it also includes facial recognition in order for you to access your coin and everything. And there's projects, he's not the only one doing a project like that. There's projects like that that are happening in Sierra Leone and like all these different countries. And they're using this terminology or this narrative of banking the unbankable, right? And I found it really interesting when she was saying that, because it sounds like what they're saying is banking those countries and those people who you know, are usually like left out because they don't operate on the dollar. They're like a third world or second world or whatever, and they're higher risk potentially, right? And so banking those unbankables. But I'm also seeing it as like you know, when you're money laundering, like you can't put that money in the bank, right? It's and so banking the unbankable is getting access to these funds that you were and putting it in the bank that you didn't previously.
The unbankable assets, the unbankable
Exactly.
resources. Also, how else is you know, Ngambe over there in Zaire gonna get capital for his art? You know, those Mercedes he's making out of like plastic bottles and like that BMW made of bricks. Like finally, we've got a
Thanks,
way for this
Wolfcoin.
kid, for all this talent that's there to like really come forth onto the world stage. You know,
Right, right,
So
right.
unbanking the unbankable. Another way of saying it is no stone unturned.
Also unbanking the unbankable, because what they want to charge you for is that carbon tax. They want to charge you for the air that you breathe. They want to charge you for literally just being alive. Literally just, you're here breathing.
Oh, but come on, they wouldn't do that. It's not like you have to pay money to live in this world.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So
What were you
it-
gonna say, Dre? Or Mitch was gonna say something.
Well,
Okay.
so for those who don't know, Palantir, it comes from Lord of the Rings, that ball where they can like see everything.
Right.
That's like actually where it comes from. But if you think
Oh.
about it, it's a big data company. But in their own, and I don't know if it's their own words or from company, right? It says they develop data fusion platforms. And so it's like communicating all this data in the world, but then centralizing it into this company so then they can make decisions based on it and then ultimately build infrastructure. Now, this is interesting because this week we've been looking at the 8 stages of process. And it's like, are we going to let this be a self-deceiver system, or are we going to step the fuck up and be the, self-perfecters within it? Because ultimately, equal money is going to be a system like this, but it's the starting point within it. Like having like WorldCoin or whatever. It's like an equal money system, and having a, let's say, surveillance system isn't necessarily a bad thing in its own, but it's the starting point of why are people doing it, and to what end? Is it to help bring everybody to what's best for all? I mean, right now, obviously it's not, but it's like when I hear
Right
this,
now,
I get motivated, so to speak. It's like, okay, fuck yeah, like this is the next level. Like we got to grow even faster.
yeah.
But if you look at this and you go into inferiority, like fuck you, come on, like you have the tools. And then,
Did you
like
see
what's
that picture though?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a
But do you
Palantir.
know what that is?
Is that the Palantir? Is that
Can you
Well,
show it again?
it said, I'll just show you because I can't really get an exact answer, but I already knew it had something to do with Palantir.
yeah.
Um, where is it? The new Global Center for Combating Extremist Ideology,
Oh.
right?
Wow.
And when you look at, I'm going to look up real quick, Palantir.
So you'd mentioned this point of
Hold
like,
on, wait,
okay.
just wait. What is this?
Gotham. Oh.
Oh, wow.
What?
Oh, it's like in the
What?
what?
Your software is
Okay,
the weapon system.
weapons. How are we defining weapons and the weapons system here?
That's pretty cool. Oh,
Guys, it's
yeah,
literally the fucking thing from Batman.
yeah.
Powering the kill chain.
Precision dominance from space to mud.
See, but like
Precision
target
dominance.
identification,
Hmm.
enhanced situational awareness, modern battle space. Okay,
Okay, so I've
so
definitely
hold
seen
up.
like some of their projects where like they have that tank and the um like
But
it's basically
look at
running
that.
Oh,
It's
the
on
the whole
kill
air.
chain.
globe.
Yeah.
You are now entering.
Look at this vocabulary.
I'm not gonna lie, like when I was into superheroes, that would look really fucking cool. That looks like, and you watching all
Well,
the
it'd be
Batman
cool because in
movies.
your mind, you're the superhero who gets to use it to your own purposes.
Right.
Now it's like, all right,
Look at this.
you get this
Palantir
room.
ranked #1 vendor in AI, data science, and machine learning.
Wow.
Who started Palantir? Who started Palantir? Peter Thiel.
Oh, surprise.
Peter Thiel, JD Vance.
Oh,
How PayPal founder. Oh, this fucking bullshit.
Uh,
Look, Vance spent 5 years in Silicon Valley, right?
I didn't know that. So that's really
So it's
interesting.
like you've got Peter Thiel behind this guy,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then what was the other point I was going to look at? Palantir. What it was, but the whole Palantir thing is like, oh, I was going to bring up the point of, okay, so Palantir wants to know every data point at all times to assess threats and be able to, okay, let's just look at it at the most sinister level. Okay. I remember like 2000, it's been 2009 or 2010. So that's over 14 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Bernard making this point that you won't be able to move without permission.
Hmm.
Like in terms of where the system is going, is a total control system. And remember, we were talking the other day with Guion, and he made that point about it's not per se that everybody will be at an equal level of poverty. It's that everyone will be at an equal point of like, you have to perform like a robot to participate in the system.
Hmm.
So if you were if you were the CEO of like a major corporation, like Walmart or something, right? Now I know it doesn't work like this in practice, but don't you want your employees to be like perfect robots?
Yeah.
Like say the exact thing you want, act the right way, stand, go here, do this, always respond this way. Like you don't want any point of their creativity in it. Also, you don't want any point where they're just like lazy or just being themselves. You want, so there's a training problem of getting up to the point you want versus also just acting within that point. Like just think about like a very high-end department store. Okay, like Neiman Marcus or something like that, right? You go in there and they are a very specific way they speak and so forth, right?
Yeah.
They're not like, yo, what's up, bro? Like, no, like you're not gonna work there very long at Neiman Marcus if you're talking like that, right? You're gonna be very specific.
Yeah.
So if you thought of the entire world as your business that you own, then you're thinking of every human being as like one of your employees. So it's not even like an evil thing. I'm not saying it's not evil. I'm just saying it's not even like they're doing it from the perspective of, I just want to control people. It's like there's a reason why they want to control them. Like, does the CEO just want to control people, or does he want to control them for the purpose of the business producing a predictable profit?
Yeah.
Right? Every day.
Yeah.
So you have the Palantir point, which is threat assessment. Like, is anyone a threat to my investment? Is anyone a risk? Is anyone, so like, think about the whole point of extremist ideologies. What is an extremist ideology? Well, extremist is just kind of depending upon what is the norm.
Yeah.
It's defined by what the norm is. So if your whole point is you want to control everybody, you want to make sure no one's a threat to what you have, you can only do that when you can observe every single point. So this is why the AI, the facial recognition, the constant like spying on you through your phone, through your devices, and then you combine this, what you saw with the Palantir, with, remember from Jensen Huang from NVIDIA?
Yeah.
And they want to simulate the whole Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
So their point is they're like, we're going to put it all into data points, and we're going to create the processors for you to process it. And Palantir has the software to be able to track every point in real time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want people to see, like, we're about to go into a phase, I would say, of like nationalism, especially within the US, being good, being patriotic, being American, pro-American, and also probably within that a lot of like hyping of like Christianity and Jesus and God. Because
yeah.
those people already have the patriotism gene in them.
Isn't it so funny? We were already talking about how, there's an uptick in people going back to religion, and because of, or at least a big motivator for that is politics, right? And people just seeing like, oh, this woke stuff is not working out, or just having this, living this life of just like, there's nothing out there is not doing it for me either, and then also with, okay, Trump, attempted assassination, and now everyone's like, oh, everyone's got the same talking point of like, it was God, you know, it was a miracle, it was, you know, divine intervention, all
Or
this.
like what Mark Zuckerberg said.
It's so badass. Like
He's like, I'm not endorsing him, but you got to say, I got to admit, that was pretty badass.
yeah, yeah.
And what did he say also?
That's the American spirit. That's another thing that he said.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now they're all like, oh yeah, pro America. Like America's actually, we are badass and we can do anything and we can get up there and we can.
Which it's
Right?
so funny because you're watching, it's just a swinging of the pendulum. Like we went like all you know, woke left, whatever. And you know, you watch Tim Pool. If you watched Tim Pool at all over the last 8 years, he would always say, the left has gone too far now. Like, shut the fuck up. But now, seriously, that was the moment. The attempted assassination was the moment of, okay, too far left.
You went too far. You got
Overcorrect.
no moral high ground anymore.
Right.
And then, and Katie's making this point, like being Christian, like they're persecuted in China. You know,
Yeah.
at least that's the story.
Yeah.
So it kind of like
Oh,
ties
yeah,
it. It
fits
plays
in
into
nicely.
all of that,
Yeah.
right? And
But also you can
and all,
see,
there was
Go ahead.
there was this point that that Avery kept making of like how the system has replaced. No one likes Bill Gates anymore,
Mhm.
right? Because they like
Yeah.
let him take the fall for like all the COVID shit in a way. You know, the system did. So
Yeah.
then they put like Elon Musk as like the new kind of like cool like tech guy,
Yeah.
replacing
Tech
Bill Gates
grease.
as like the because remember Bill Gates for a while people were like he's awesome actually. He's such a philanthropist. They did
Yeah.
they just forgot about all the actual like he's
Yeah,
a
they-
fucking business person, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're doing the same thing with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And then look, did you see that speech? I didn't know where Avery's because the other day he mentioned this point about Elon Musk giving Trump $45 million a month, and I was like, where did you hear that? Trump said it the other day.
I didn't know that.
He said it in a speech. He goes, "This guy gives me $45 million a month and never mentions it." And he goes, "These other people give me $2 and I have to wine and dine them." He's like making this funny joke about it. I'm like, interesting, right?
Oh,
So
wow. I didn't see
now, so here's what I'm seeing, and like Katie's really supported me a lot to see these points of like the Trump being, because initially when it was like they were why were they pushing what was that guy with the boots? Your guy.
Ron DeSantis.
Ron
Ronnie
DeSantis. Ron DeSanctimonious.
DeSanctimonious.
Everyone, a lot of people made fun of Trump for saying that, but I mean, he fucking destroyed DeSantis. I don't even know how he did it because he wasn't even in the stage. Like, somehow,
Right.
he was like the golden boy for a minute there.
Yeah.
But when he was being pushed forward, Katie kept saying that it's like he's going to be the guy. And maybe Owen Benjamin was saying this too. I don't know, but he was going to be like the crypto guy. He was going to be the guy that helped us push into the digital currency and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of the point there. And then he's gone. So anyways, so it's like Trump is supposed to be the guy that's going to get us to basically AI dominance. And I mean, and I look at it like this, like, I don't want to say anything is all bad. You know what I mean? From the same perspective that you could say, well, the internet's going to be used to spy on everybody. Yeah, but also I'm glad we have it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, let's just not give up. But so the AI, I think, could be really cool. But regardless of whether it's cool or not, someone is going to develop it. And would you rather it be China or would you rather it be the US?
Right.
Because do you have a possibility yourself? If China gets the AI first, do we ever have a possibility ever of it being used for what's best?
Well, I mean, in both scenarios, it's
Like-
going to be used for control.
Infinitely
but what I'm
harder.
saying is- but what I'm
Infinitely
saying is-
harder if China has
Is it possible for us to go into politics in America and influence it and like direct it?
Yeah.
If it
Yeah.
goes over here, I just don't even know what the possibility is. I
Yeah,
mean, there
yeah.
has to be a way through, but I'm just saying it seems a lot easier to stand up in politics here. Cause like here in America, you can actually run for office
Right.
and you can
right.
actually win. Over there, I don't think it works that way.
I mean,
Like, you don't. It's just not how it works.
but also in either scenario, in either case, it's like, okay, let's say that here they've got all these data points on you now. Like the AI is built, you know, and they got all these data points on every single person. And so anyone who wants to stand up and become a politician or whatever, they've got like your entire history of everything you've done on the internet. They've got like, you know, that she makes this point, the Whitney Webb makes this point of, you know, when you call 911, you're giving permission for them to data mine your phone to basically see where your location is and predict, oh, this is where crime happens or whatever. And that happened
Didn't
to
you
me, like,
experience that? Right. I was
that
gonna
happened to
say.
me like last week. Like last week, I called you about it, right? Where I was like, I'm just driving and I saw an accident take place. Or I didn't see the accident take place, but I saw like airbags were deployed, cars were like creeping around. No, like people, no one had even gotten out of their cars yet. So I called 911. I'm like, hey, there's an accident right here. And I'm driving, right? And they're like, oh, at this and this street. And I'm like, well, that's the street I'm on right now. But no, I mean like a little further back. Oh, when you first called? I'm like, yeah, okay, we got that location. I'm like, what? I didn't even say where I was. Like it was crazy. And I'm just like dumbfounded because I never had that experience where I just called and I talked to somebody else about it. I was like, did you know that when you call 911 and they were like, oh yeah, no, the same thing happened to me. Same thing happened to me. I got into an
Everyone's probably
accident.
like, yeah, it's cool. They finally got the upgrade where they can just know where you're at.
Exactly. I don't have to describe. But
I mean, it's
if you think
actually
about it,
cool
if
if
you're
you.
on the highway and they're like, what mile marker are you on? You
Right.
ever had that experience where you're just like, I don't fucking know like what mile marker I'm on? Like, are you westbound? Are you southbound? Like whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm on the street.
Right. People are
Help.
so. It's like incompetence too, right? Because like you should kind of know where you're at, but
Okay,
Yes,
you're never
but
I
trained for that.
think ultimately we should have a right to privacy. Like if we want to be in a private situation where we
Yeah.
don't want anyone to see and have access to it, I think that should be our right.
yeah,
But we'll never actually have that right until we know within ourselves and we can trust within other people that they would not abuse that.
yeah.
Because
Also-
like, let me put it this way. Let's say we give everybody the right and like literally anybody can just turn on a force field at any moment and be surrounded by a bubble where nothing can see what you're doing, know about what you're doing. Could you go rape a child?
Yeah, I mean,
So why wouldn't somebody use it for that? So this is the balance point. It's like,
Yeah.
am I saying we shouldn't have a right? We should, just like you should have a right to your basic needs being met.
Yeah.
You should have a right to free speech. But if we have a right to free speech, then doesn't someone else have a right to then influence other people and persuade them to do things that aren't best?
yeah.
So none of these things really are relevant if we're not all operating from the starting point of what's best for all. I'm not saying there can't be an allowance for mistakes being made, but there can't be a point of we just allow abuse.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, okay, you can be totally anonymous on the internet. Well, that's what allows people to talk shit about politicians, celebrities, about
About
me,
anybody.
you,
Yeah.
anything. Like anonymously, just say what the fuck they want. They can just make any claim they want, and there's no way you can do anything about it.
Dude, do you know how many people send me messages like, actually people put their fucking emails, but because their email may not be tied to like their actual name or may not be like, like you can do
It's
whatever.
like GX175389121 at gmail.com
So
or something.
people send me emails all the fucking time that are just like, fuck you. Like they're just being nasty for no
Right,
fucking reason. Like,
right,
I don't know
right.
these people. I have no idea
Right.
who they are. Maybe I do
It's
know.
me.
I don't know,
It's
right?
me.
But like,
Yeah, you're on to me and Cameron. We've been fucking with you.
I just told you my emails. GX139.
Yeah. Have you
It
guys
was
listened to
you.
that in EQOF? There's that whole FAQ on equal money. I
Yeah.
listened to it like years ago, and I'm just like, that will be a good refresher.
It spells it all out. It's like it's not giving you every single detail, but it's showing you like, okay, let's use our imagination for a moment. How would it affect this? How would it affect this? How would it affect
Yeah.
this? Like
And
it's
you
so
obviously see
yeah.
how core TechnoTutor is. I mean, Bernard even explains that in Science and Language and Equal Money System. It's like very obvious, right? It's like if you don't have the equal education, there's no chance of being able to communicate effectively. Yet, as we do the TechnoTutor piece first, lays the groundwork, right? Self-perfected's like the community piece, and then that can allow us to start to then influence politics, which then leads to the equal money. Yet this infrastructure is being built. So it's like it's like you can either judge Peter Thiel and them, or you can say, hey, I'm equal to them, and let's fucking go. That's how I see it.
Well, what are you gonna do about it by judging him anyways? What are you gonna do about it? Like okay.
It's just like blame. It's like going into blame, you're fucking shooting your own foot.
The coolest thing I sent you guys, it was Mike Cernovich talking with Tucker Carlson. Did you listen to any of that, Drake?
Nah, not
Okay.
at all.
It's good.
Okay.
It's really good. Like
Well,
it's
the other
worth
one
it.
I thought was really good.
Mike
Whitney Webb one?
Cernovich.
Whitney Webb one. That was
Cern-
really
I
like
followed Cernovich a lot back whenever in 2016.
I don't even know who is he.
Well, exactly. I followed him back in 2016 because he was very pro Trump. I think he used to be a lawyer, or maybe still is. And he wrote books. Like he wrote one called Guerrilla Mindset. He was like, he even describes himself as like he was an influencer before there was even a term influencer. Like he was on there building a following, selling books. Like, and I remember it wasn't like I primarily followed him, but because of learning about him with the Trump thing, I started like listening to what he was saying and so forth. And he made this really cool point. Like he would sell ebooks, and people would complain like, oh, there'd be like a typo or something, and he'd be like, the amount of money I make versus the time I would spend correcting a typo, it's irrelevant typo.
yeah.
Relevant. And I just thought that was really cool, like hit that perspective of like looking at practical, like what actually is relevant with it when you're doing something like that. Anyways, he just had a lot of really cool. I mean, I didn't like follow his perspective, meaning like he wrote books about mindset stuff. I wasn't looking for that, but he was talking about Trump. Do you remember? I don't know how much you guys really paid attention back then.
I remember seeing his name a lot.
Do you remember Baked Alaska?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I remember there was this whole sphere of people back then, right? Anyways, so Cernovich was a guy who like he was one of the guys I think who was primary in helping get Trump get elected. You know, you could say like Steve Bannon, like there were certain people that because of their effort, it got enough support and really pushed it forward, right? Scott Adams, another example, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, the reason you don't know about him now is he made this point about he didn't want to be an influencer anymore. He didn't want that sort of like limelight stuff. So he backed off from doing video and he just writes and does blogs and Twitter and that kind of stuff. And so now like he made this point about how video creates this point. People like want to follow you as a personality rather than like actually listen to what you're saying. It was probably really interesting. I'm not saying I agree with all of it. It's just interesting his perspective. So that's the only, and I was like, what? I haven't heard of Mike Cernovich in a while, but now he's suddenly on Tucker Carlson. I don't know why, but I think he's trying to like get people to wake up about the whole point with Trump and all this stuff. Okay, so what was my point about that? He talked about a lot of cool points, but he made this one interesting point. He said they were talking about evil and talking about a bunch of points, and he was talking about despair because how he felt after Trump got into office and then basically filled his cabinet with deep state people and like kind of ignored all the people who got him there and stopped listening to them and kind of like, oh, bye. He felt like initially like really bummed out about that. And so they were getting on this context of the concept of like despair. When have you felt despair? And he said this point back when he was in law school and he had applied for some loans to continue law school and he didn't get them. And he said he went into like total fucking despair and like, you know, it was one of the most despairing moments of his life. And now he looks at it and he was like, over what is not really a lot of money. And there's probably other ways I could have figured it out and stuff, but like just how I went into like this total like fucking meltdown over that point, and then realizing because he said this cool point. So he I guess he's Christian or something, but he also like seems to do like ayahuasca and stuff. So I don't know. Like, I didn't really get to understand like what his. He talked about the spirit realm and all this stuff, but he made this cool point about he goes, as a man. I guess it wasn't even just about being a man per se, but he was speaking from the perspective of being a man. He was like, you should not allow yourself to go into despair. That is a sin. Because he goes, if you go into despair, which is like, it's over, my life's over, you know, it's all over. He's like, you are saying that you can't be saved by Christ. He's basically saying, you're saying it's all over, your life's over, then you're saying you can't be saved. So, I mean, from that perspective, it makes sense from a logical perspective, right?
Yeah.
But let's just take it from our perspective. Like if you're saying it's all over, you're just giving up.
Yeah.
And you don't realize who you really are. You don't realize why you're fucking here. And you don't realize the game's not over. You're just because I've been there. I know what that experience is like. It's just you're participating in a bunch of fucking energy. And the thing you wanted, you didn't get. And it's possible also there's like, okay, when do you fall? Okay, if you want to learn from the Greek tragedies.
After pride, hubris.
Right. the way he described hubris was really cool. He's like, when you think you've already won,
Mm.
when you think you've already won, and you're like, so if you go into this point of like, hey, my life's stable, I'm good, everything's okay, you think you won, you're gonna fall. Like, you have to fall, because that's not why you're fucking here.
Dude,
You're not here just to be okay. You're here to fucking change the system.
we talked about this on the hangout on Friday, where we were talking about like, um, you know, creating heaven on earth and how that's necessary. And someone had brought up how if you don't change the system comes for you. And they were talking about a family member of theirs, who, I'm not going to give too many details, but basically a family member of theirs got thrown in jail. And this is in a country where they don't have due process the same way that we have here, right? And so their family member got thrown in jail, and this family member had their own business. They were living well. They were like, they were top of the top, right? And so, you know, they were just saying like, you know, if you create your own bubble where your life is stable, your life is good, you know, you're living the good life, um, and you're not doing anything to change the system will come for you. And it really reminds me of that point that, you know, we talked about Jesus and responsibility, right? And just that point of it is inevitable that the system will change. Not because it will happen on its own, but because the conditions that we live in, like, we continue to get more and more pressure to take responsibility. If we don't take responsibility, the conditions are such that you have to, okay, like the example that you gave of, if you don't clean your room, if you're just like sitting in your room, you're eating in your room, you're drinking, like, you've seen those memes of like people with like the glasses all over their nightstand and all around their bed and everything. It's like, I haven't brought any of these to the kitchen, you know. That's how people actually live. That's crazy, right? But then you got the plates of you know, grease from eating pizzas and the chips all over in the bags. Eventually, at some point, you're gonna be like, I am living. You're gonna attract some fucking ants. You're gonna attract some roaches. You're gonna attract some shit where you're like, I can't live in these conditions anymore. And inevitably, you will clean up your room, right? But it's gonna be more work than if you would have just taken that glass to the fucking kitchen.
Still have to do all that same work plus
Exactly.
more, because now you got mold crusted to your plates and shit, right?
Right. Exactly. And so the point being, it's like, yeah, inevitably you will take responsibility, but like, do you want all that extra work? Like, what? Just do it now. Do it now.
And then you look at it and you're like, I really don't want to do it. And then you delay it more and it compounds more. And there's a really cool point, and it might be subtle for some people within the Jesus responsibility one, where he says, it's inevitable. See, and this is the point. It took me a while to process this, because it's like, oh, it's inevitable that we're going to have a world that's best for all. And it's like, you could go, oh, well, I don't need to fucking do anything.
Right.
But the reason why it's inevitable is not because it's going to happen for you, because it's all of us or none of us. So how can it be both inevitable and it be all of us or none of us? Because like, so it's going to happen even if all of us don't do it. Like, but not, you know, it doesn't make sense, right? Because what he explains in that article is that who we actually are, whether you realize this or not, I mean, you have to eventually, but whether you currently right now see this point, understand it, realize it or not, who we really are is equality and oneness, what is best for all. It is the expression of that. It is fundamentally what we are, is that expression. That's it, nothing beyond that. There's also nothing that forces us to act according to that. Like, we have actual free choice. We can actually act against who we really are temporarily. Yeah, exactly. That's the real context of sin, right?
Yeah.
But then you create a consequence, which you don't like, which is not best, because you acted against what's best. I mean, it's kind of like fucking obvious logic, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Like, the world is just an accumulation of all those dishes piling up for a trillion fucking years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but it can't last into eternity because it's not fundamentally actually who we are. So who we are is best for all. Therefore, you can fool yourself for a very long time, but you can't fool yourself infinitely. It's not possible. And so I don't know how to express it better, because it's like the way Jesus says it is so clear, but someone may not process it. But I don't think I can explain it better. You know what I mean? There's not like a way to dumb it down that makes it more clear than if you could just process directly what's being said. But it's like the nature of who we are is what's best for all. Therefore, what is not best for all cannot last forever.
Right.
That doesn't mean magically one day it all just happens. It just means eventually, inevitably, because of who you are going to eventually face the point where you're like, I'm fed up. I'm going to take responsibility now. And so the question is, how much suffering do you want until that point happens? Can you get there of your own will and realization before you're in a way forced to? No one's going to force you to move your hand to clean the dishes, but it's going to get to a point where you now are like, it's like, so what's your threshold of like, I can't fucking do it. I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so that is why we say we're in hell.
Yeah.
We're not in hell because God put us here, you know what I mean? In the sense of like, we're being punished for something. It's like, we've created this reality as hell because we've gone against who we really are, but it's inevitable. We will change it.
Yeah.
But that don't abuse that as a point of hope, because if you go, well, great, now I don't have to do anything about it, it's eventually going to happen, you're actually literally making it worse.
Right. Yeah.
You're making it to the point where you're like, it's still going to be so fucking hard to do it. Right. But I just real quick, I want to go back to that despair point.
Go ahead.
His whole point was, if you're participating in despair, it's because you've basically said like, I can't be saved. What we would say is you're just giving up on life.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're still going to have to face it even when you die. If you're like, well, I'm going to die anyways, what does it matter? You're still going to have to face it. You just don't understand that. You're thinking like a fucking atheist of like, oh, nothing exists when I'm dead. It doesn't really matter anyways. And that's the problem with the whole leftist point.
Yeah.
It's like nothing really matters.
Yeah.
The problem with the Christian point is someone else is going to fix it. There's a, like, guys, I don't know how to, maybe because I'm not arguing with a real person. I'm just arguing with some logic.
Just Mitch and Drake. They're not real people.
But I feel like if I argue with the logic enough, eventually something will happen, right? But it's like
the threshold will be reached.
Right. It's like, it was like JD Vance said it.
Oh,
he said it's divine fucking intervention that Trump turned his head at the last minute.
Yeah. And then I thought you were going to say the other part that he said, the anxiety part.
Oh, we'll get to that, I guess. But it's like, okay, it's divine intervention. So how do you know it was? Like, could you just play devil's advocate for me? How do you know that was divine intervention?
Because if he didn't, if like literally, like, come on, you're going to tell me just that half a second, that millisecond, that he's gonna like, just like, how would he know to turn his head? He didn't know. It just so happened at that moment that he turned his head and he didn't get shot. Like that's divine intervention. He would have died otherwise.
So
if God was not watching him.
So it is there, but are you arguing then that God played a role somehow in that point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somehow mechanically. I'm not saying it's not possible for God to do this. Please don't think I'm arguing that. That's not possible. So I'm not trying to trap you in like, oh, but it's not possible. Like, are you suggesting at some level God influenced that to happen through some means? So. However, okay. Why doesn't God influence reality to make sure every child?
Oh, see, God just took you out for talking all that shit.
God, aka Elon Musk.
Divine intervention. God took you out.
Are there children every single day who are on the brink of starvation? Is there a child who's going to die maybe today, tomorrow, next week of starvation?
Listen,
is there a child who's going to be raped?
God works in mysterious ways.
No. So, is there a child that's going to be raped?
We can't. Predict.
All right, you're retarded. I'll argue with Mitch.
Okay. Yes, a child.
Okay. Why isn't God in that moment going to intervene?
You know.
Oh
God! Don't be retarded like Drake.
because that kid. Maybe that kid didn't pray enough.
Or maybe God's going to use that child for later on, that
Yeah.
experience. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Bring
and
about
that,
heaven.
and that's going to, help that kid to go and help others out of that situation. It has to,
So,
yeah.
okay. Bring your child here in front of me right now
Mhm.
and let me rape your child.
Whoa.
No. It
Well,
only
hold on,
works if it's
hold
a
on,
bit-
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. How do you know? Now, are you going to assume that if that happens, it's the devil, Satan, evil?
Yes.
No, it's you. You're the devil, Satan.
No, no, no,
evil.
no, no, no. Hold on, hold on. But in this other case, you said maybe God is somehow working through that. So there is a possibility, even something evil, that God's working through it. So I want you to write down on a piece of paper every single evil action occurring right now and tell me which ones are God and which ones aren't.
Well,
Well, Cameron,
I don't know.
one
I
of
don't
them
know.
is related to God. because
If
of
Trump
how
had
he
been
is.
assassinated,
Uh-huh.
how would you know that's not God working through that?
Well, I don't know God's plan. Maybe.
How do you know? How do you know God Trump turning his head isn't the work of the devil? How do you know it was God's plan that he
Cameron,
survived? How do you know
because
what's
of
God?
how-
How do you know? Like, does God's plan always get fulfilled no matter what?
Cameron,
Yes.
it's because of how I feel.
So why do we need to do
That's
anything?
my answer.
Because we need just if we don't do anything, then we won't go to
Okay,
heaven.
let me ask you a question. If Trump gets elected and JD Vance gets elected and you guys do a great job and you do things great, isn't part of what you're going to be doing try to alleviate suffering in the United States?
Yes, of course.
So God will act to save Trump to alleviate. Is it going to alleviate every single 100%?
No.
Is it
maybe
going to stop
not.
every child from being raped?
Not yet, but it'll start the ball rolling.
So eventually, you think doing this, all children are going to stop being raped?
I
Well,
don't
that'll
know.
probably only happen in heaven, Cameron.
I don't know.
Like,
Yeah.
why is it that God needs to do this act to have this one politician do something that eventually, when he can literally, obviously, he literally can just influence physical reality against our free will? Because Trump did not exercise his free will in that moment. In that exact moment of turning his head, God controlled his body somehow. That's the only way you could say it's divine intervention. So
Or
why
here's the
can't
answer.
hold on.
He
Is
controlled the
God a
bullet.
mathematician? Can God understand math?
I'm sure he can.
Couldn't he look at the entire system and be like, if I just slightly tweak this one point, the cascade effect is that all children will have enough food?
So maybe that's what's happening.
Instead, he's going to tweak that one point of the neurons in Trump's head or something so that he doesn't survive. Because then if he survives, then he's going to become president and then he's going to enact these laws and work together and do all this stuff. And like, and then
Maybe
eventually
that was that
all
moment,
children will
Cameron.
be fed.
Or maybe God made that decision so long ago, and this is just a consequential outcome.
What I really want to know, if I could ask God anything, is like, is JD Vance just lying to our face, or is he really that fucking stupid?
About the
I
divine
don't know, man.
intervention thing.
Yes, like I really just I wish I could look. I wish I had Palantir, and I could just look in everybody's brain and be like, "Do you actually believe this fucking nonsense you're saying,
Wow, yeah,
or are
that'd be
you
nice.
really like just flat out fucking lying? Are you really just lying right now?"
Yeah.
Because then, what was maybe you're really good at the storytelling, Jake. Can you tell the story that he told about how he knows? Because he said grace is like basically it's maturity. I don't know what it had to do with God. It's like if you study, if you practice your faith long enough, then you have these moments of grace where you don't yell at people as much. And like his wife is not Christian, presumably.
Yeah, or at least he was
Still not Christian. I don't know. Is she or not?
I don't know. I don't know.
It was. He didn't say she is. It seems like what he's not saying.
Yeah.
And yet she saw the value in his Christian practice because
Yeah.
he's really patient with the kids or patient with her or whatever.
She's like, I don't really get this Christian thing, but you doing it is good because you're more patient with the kids. Like, oh, damn.
So why aren't you Christian then? Like
Yeah.
he can't even convince his own wife. Like, hey, you're gonna go to hell. Like what? Anyways, so maybe you can tell that story.
Okay, he's having grace with his wife. But story of what? About just the anxiety thing?
Yeah.
He literally just said he was like, it was so funny the way he like did the objection handling up front. He's like, you may not see this as that significant, but I see that Jesus works in every moment. And like everyone was like to that, just like yes, yes. He's like, and so because he's speaking obviously to a Christian crowd. It was like faith.
Yeah, it was a Christian. It was a Christian group specifically.
Yeah. But he said something to the effect of like, you know, on the night that I had to give this speech, like the biggest speech of my life. I had only gotten like 2 hours of sleep, and there's so many things going on. I got a headache and all this, and I got so many things running through my mind, and I'm trying different things. I'm like meditating, and and finally after 30 minutes of just trying to clear my mind, I just said, Jesus, what did he say? Jesus, help me out here. That's it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus, help me out here. And that was the last thing I remember. For 3 hours, I just felt like calm, just.
No. Not this last thing. Remember, he fell back asleep.
But that's what he said. That's the last thing he remembered.
Right. No, but he didn't say it because he was calm. He just said he fell asleep. Like,
Yeah,
in other words, I don't know. Did you set up the point of like, he said he normally his whole life he just sleeps like a baby?
No,
He puts his head on the pillow, he falls asleep immediately. So his point was setting it up like this is not normal for him to like have like I can't sleep. So he woke up at 3 a.m. He had nothing to do. It was like the biggest speech of his life was about to happen that day, and he couldn't get enough sleep. And he's like, but he just basically said, Jesus, help me, and then he fell asleep. And he was trying to use that as an example of, again, when you believe in Jesus and you call on him, he gives you the point that you need or something, right? And it's like,
yeah, it's like a conspiracy. Like, is he actually believing that or not? I guess it's kind of irrelevant.
it is possible that he believes it, but but then it's like then
he appears to me as someone who will just say what needs to be said. He's a politician,
I mean, he clearly is a politician and clearly does that because you have to. That doesn't prove he believes it or not, or doesn't, but what is it that you actually believe? You believe that by saying, Jesus, help me, Jesus changed the serotonin levels and fucking melatonin levels or whatever in your brain.
You know what the
whatever
image
it is.
You know what the image is, right? It's like Jesus with like some sort of shield blocking all these demonic thoughts coming to you. Like wait, hang on.
It's like Jesus cuddling in bed with him.
Wait. Because this is so significant. Because where do people think their thoughts come from? Right? It's like people think their thoughts come from outside. They don't realize like their thoughts are coming from within them. And because they think
it's literally you creating it. Yeah.
And so, but also, okay, dude, because I looked up like devil and Satan, right? And I was looking up the etymology and like kind of the usage of the words and everything. And early usage of these words, like Satan's like adversary, right? One who plots against another. But early usage of these words was not like a being, but rather like a spirit. And what I mean by that is like spirit of the devil, as in like, when you look at law,
like almost like a mindset.
But when you look at law and you're reading law, you can read the letter of the law,
the spirit of the law,
or the spirit of the law, right?
Meaning like the real meaning of it, the real versus like the specific actual wording.
Yes, but like the American spirit. Is there a spirit called America that's like running around like like no?
Yeah, the Statue of Liberty, right? Until you look up Statue of Liberty equals.
Wait a second. Are you saying the Holy Spirit?
It's a spirit of being holy.
I have the Holy Spirit. It actually makes a lot more fucking sense. Like he gave me the Holy Spirit. It's like it wasn't a ghost that went into your body. It was just like you got energized on the side of this particular concept or philosophy or something that you're trying to promote, and you got like I got the spirit of it.
Right.
Like team spirit.
So the spirit of the devil or the spirit of the adversary, the spirit of the one who plots against.
Yeah. It's like you're in that alignment of that mode of doing things.
Yeah. And at some point it became
people were like, but you said it was a spirit. So it's like a person,
like
right? And you're like,
liquor, spirits. Like
it's like, it's like that scene in Idiocracy where they're like, but it's got what plants crave.
yeah,
It's got electrolytes. Yeah, but what is electrolytes? Like, it's what plants
It's
crave.
what
And you're
plants
like,
crave.
do you not fucking process my question?
Right.
It's like,
Dude,
Obviously.
and that's the thing. There's no processing happening.
right. That's the point,
That-
dude.
that-
and
that is
then
the-
hold on. And then JD Vance tells this point about like how his kids start asking the questions and weird questions, and he's like, "Oh,
If anyone knows how to deal with those.
how do you kind of deal with this? Or anybody knows?" And I'm like, "How do I brainwash my kids to be fucking dumb like me?" That's really what you're saying, because your kids are probably like, "But daddy, how does Jesus actually, you know, do this?" And you're like, "Well, like, did he actually influence the neurons in Trump's spinal cord in his nervous system? And did he actually depolarize the cells so that his head jerked at that moment? Like, how did he physically affect the balance of salt chemistry in Trump's body to influence his muscles to move in that way at that moment? How did he do it?" And he's like, "Does anybody have any ways of getting my kids to be stupid here?" It's like, just put them in public school.
Oh, I'll write that one down.
But they'll also be transgender. Who cares? God is 3 genders.
Yeah, who cares? I got in this position, and now I'm gonna benefit from Palantir.
So
And
okay.
then it's like, oh yeah, you actually. There's so much I want to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say on that point of put them in school, right? I messaged this in the chat of like what the U.S. government learned from TikTok, right? Because I don't know, we heard about like the U.S. banning TikTok and all that. Is that still happening? Like, how does that work? I have no idea, right?
I'll look at it. We'll
But
see.
yeah, can you look it up, Mitch? But here's what I learned. Like when Thomas Massey was talking about that and everything, he was saying it's not about China. Like they keep saying, oh, it's because China's spying on us and all this, like, but it's like there's so many other products that we use from China that
Right.
nobody says anything about. So
like your
that
fucking
is,
fridge, which has like some Wi-Fi enabled Bluetooth, whatever fucking shit that they can
Right.
easily fucking get in there. And yeah.
right. And so he's like, it's not about China. And I was looking at that point, and what Thomas Massey was saying was like it's a slippery slope, blah blah blah. But this was a while ago that I didn't pay attention to that until recently, because another thing that I saw was just from a TikToker, and they were saying, the reason why the U.S. government wants to ban TikTok is because of all the like anti-Israel communication going out, right?
Probably.
And I was looking at that, and then recently, I sent you like that video that I watched of Biden, right? Where it was a reel, or actually it was a YouTube short. So the same concept though, right? A YouTube short, and it was a Biden saying basically like they were interviewing him, asking him, is there any reason why you would drop out of the race? And he gave his answer of like, if my doctor came to me and said I have a medical condition, whatever, and then I was looking through the comments, and all of the comments, and this was like really early on, the video just got like put out. All the comments were, oh, leave Biden alone. He's just such a nice guy. Oh, leave Joe. Oh, he's been so great. Let him continue running. And like literally that was like, I was scrolling and I'm like, I know that's not real. I know for a fact that's not real.
I was on TikTok specifically.
No. This was on YouTube.
YouTube shorts.
On
Okay,
YouTube.
Got
And
it.
like I know for a fact this is not real. And part of the reason why I know, because remember that voice clip that I sent you? I went to one of my clients' homes. I know this family. They are a Democrat family, right? But they had the RNC playing in the background. I could hear it. I could hear the RNC playing in the background while I'm over their house. And I asked the grandfather, and I'm like, hey, what do you think? Who's going to win? This was, just after the assassination attempt and everything. And he comes over to me, and he's an older Black guy and very, very pro-Democrat. And he says, I was thinking Biden, but mentally, he's not there. And the problem is if Trump gets into office, we're gonna have some trouble in this country. But he was basically saying, dude, I'm pro Biden. I was hoping he was gonna win, but I can see clearly. And this is an older man. He's like, I can see clearly. He's not there. He can't do it. It's gonna be Trump. He knows this already. And I'm talking to a lot of people, like physical people, real people, and I know their political leanings, and everyone is saying Trump's winning. Everybody's got that same sentiment.
If Biden steps out, who would go in?
Well,
Because
you know,
like I
they're
just saw
floating
the
a whole
I don't
bunch
news.
of
even know
different-
if he's
they're
One
floating
of the
Newsom,
one
they're
of the-
floating, Clinton,
yeah
just
Clinton. Jesus.
but
I can't imagine that actually happens. Like Clinton. I don't see
the
it,
point
but-
the point though of what I'm saying is that what I learned from this is what the US government learned is this is how people are learning. As in whatever you could say it was Israel, whatever the conspiracy theory that's being spread out through TikTok, right? Or through Reels or whatever. This is how people are learning. People are getting programmed by this. This is what the government learned. It's like, oh, okay, this is turning the tide on how people view Israel, how people view this, how people view that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've been seeing lately a lot of videos, and they're just so fucking weird, so fucking weird. But hear this. I've been seeing these videos of like it'll have a it'll say something controversial like something you didn't learn in school, right? Something like that. And it'll be about the US Civil War. It'll be about, some sort of history thing that you were supposed to learn in school, whatever, or you learned some take on it. And this is the controversial take or whatever. But then you watch it and it's literally the exact same thing that they tell you in school or in the textbook or whatever, right? It's the exact same talking point, the exact same mainstream, but it's done in this like they try to do it in this way of like, oh, what? I didn't know. Like it's like, oh, you just learned something new. And then all the comments are, yeah, see, it was I knew that the Civil War was about slavery. Like that's literally the only thing that they tell you in school. Like they don't tell you anything other than that, right? And like that's all the comments are like that of like, I had a teacher and like they showed me this different way other than what they were teaching in the textbook. I'm like, but that's literally what's in the text. It's so weird, right? And I was looking at that and I'm like, people actually believe that they're hearing a different perspective or they're hearing something new or that they've got the right perspective or whatever, right?
What if they start like turning everything in the textbooks into conspiracy theories? So like
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And I don't know if you heard it in this interview, the Whitney Webb, but she was saying that they're seeing they have to change the education. They're seeing like, oh, we're changing the education system, and now we're giving that to Facebook to educate,
yeah.
right? And I see that point so clearly because it's like, okay, you've noticed as you go through Facebook, whether you're on your desktop, on your phone, whatever, it's like you get all these things that you didn't ask for, completely unrelated to you. If you read some of them, it's so obvious, but you read just like the first few lines, and it's written by AI. It's really obvious. And then others of them are just like, okay, but that is not true. That's like completely false. Like whether it's somebody's idea. And then I've also seen literally I'll read this blurb about a podcast, like a Joe Rogan podcast or whatever, and these are the guests, and here's a synopsis of what happened. This is just my opinion. This is just my take. And then you scroll down, and like 3 or 4 posts later, it's the exact same blurb, maybe a slightly different picture, and a different profile has shared it, but the exact same blurb. Maybe they changed one word here or there. And I'm like, oh, this is being promoted.
Yeah.
Like this idea is being promoted. And so it's really obvious. They're like, oh, okay, here's how we can shape public opinion, public thinking. Because what happens is, think about it. I remember my mom got onto, I don't know if it was on TikTok or on Instagram or wherever she saw this, but she had, you know how you can take the audio of somebody else's reel or TikTok or whatever and put it on yours. And people do that and like it's trending or whatever. So when that first started taking off, or at least noticed by my mom, that one of the really popular audios was like, "Oh, this is nice. Oh, this is real nice. Oh, this is all you. Wow, girl, this ain't got no roaches." And my mom would say that over and over and over, like she couldn't help herself. And I would have to cut her. I'd be like, "Shut the fuck up. Stop. Stop." Because like she would go into a hotel room and she'd be like, "Oh, this is nice." I'm like, "Stop it." Like
You're like, who's recording right now?
right? But
She's like, did you get
like,
that? And you're like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to film.
but I'm like, Mom, it's like it's literally like programming you. Like you're just repeating that program, right? And that's what happens is you repeat that audio because we know that's how music works. That's how it works, right? But also on top of that, like just looking through the comments, because that's the first thing that people do is to get context on what is it that I just watched, or this is so funny. What are other people saying? You look at the comments, and it's the first thing you do. I remember there would be these jokes, like for a while, the biggest joke in the comment section would be like, and here you are in the comments, like, something like that. Somebody like pointing out, like, yep, of course you would come to the comments.
Yeah.
It's what everybody does. But then you read, and as you're reading, it's the same thing that was done on Reddit that really made Reddit really powerful is you look at these anonymous comments and you're believing that these are real people having these opinions and it's shaping your opinion. Oh, well, this is how everyone else thinks. And then you all of a sudden you have these thoughts that you don't even know how they got into your mind, but this is the process. But you think that you've come to the conclusion on your own that, oh, Joe's such a nice guy. Oh, why are they treating him like this? Oh, he's just, and
Well,
it's like,
it's all of these things are. I remember watching a podcast a long time ago on Timcast with like the guy who started. He was one of the original founders of Wikipedia. I think we talked about it, but him saying exactly how Wikipedia is used to influence. So of course, the thing is anything that gets people's attention. That's like music. That's why it's all this like negative shit in music, because it's something that gets people's attention and focus. And therefore, of course, the people who want to maintain control are going to utilize that to continue programming everybody with the stuff that's going to keep them not performing at the level they could, not at the level of creativity that they could. And they're just using it as a release valve of their stress and anxiety. It's the same thing. Like, it's so interesting that JD Vance said that point about the anxiety, because we've been talking about this a lot.
Yeah.
Of like, really, the forgiveness of Jesus is you just have some anxiety. You don't know how to do self-forgiveness. You don't believe you have the power to forgive it. So you're calling upon someone else to let you release that energy.
Yeah.
But it's not like you fundamentally change.
Okay, hey, put that in the context of what you were talking about earlier of like despair, right? Because it's so easy to go into despair, even in the context of like self-forgiveness, right? Where you're just like, well, but this thing is so big, I can't possibly forgive myself for this. That's really like the point of despair that I see is like you're giving up on yourself. You're like saying to yourself that I will not forgive myself. I cannot forgive myself. I'm not willing to.
Well, I see people can see that, especially relative to like when you look at the world system, like people who really take on the self-forgiveness because you want to change yourself so you can stand in a position of responsibility. When you hear about things like Project Stargate, fucking Palantir, assassination attempts, all this shit is like that's where the despair can creep in if you're not careful. You realize like, look, the way that we change the system, it's not all on you per se, but it is all on you to fucking correct yourself to be your fullest expression. Yet, as we do this as a group, that's how we change it. It's just it's never been done before too. So we're so used to looking to an authority and following that we don't really see examples in the world of like, oh, there's a badass group of people actually standing up for what's best. I mean, you know, a lot of guys are like, you know, you look at like a movie might have that like 300, right? But it's like it's still fucked because it's one, it's Hollywood, two, it's warfare. You know, so
Man,
there's
that
no reference
Cernovich,
points.
I really recommend you guys will watch that Cernovich interview.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that obviously I'm not trying to pretend like I agree with everything. You guys will use your own discernment, but um,
This
he
part
brought
about
this. He brought
said,
this. Hold on. He brought this
is
point
this
about the movies, and how like the Americans, the way we like movies is there's like he said, like take like the Marvel movies for example, right? There's this big conflict. There's this evil thing, and then at the end, the good guys win. They kiss the girls. It's all good. And he's like, but that's not reality. He says, but we're programmed to think that's how reality should work. Like, so when we vote, when we do stuff, we're actually operating within that in our mind.
yeah.
And that's the point that's where the hubris point comes in, where you're like, we won. So that's what happened with Trump. It's like, we won the election. Yes, it's over. We got it. And then immediately it was like, nope, fuck you all. Haha. Like I'm putting the guy from the FDA or from fucking Pfizer, whoever, as the head of the FDA, or, you know, whatever, like just
Right.
crazy shit, right?
Right.
Um,
Oh.
in the movies when it's all over. And he makes this point. He goes, okay, but it wasn't over. Like, okay, think about all the buildings that were destroyed when the Marvel characters were fighting each other and shit. Someone has to rebuild that shit. People are literally in the streets probably now dying and broken bones and shit. And like, and then also, you didn't defeat evil. There's still somebody else who's going to be evil later. And you're going to, so it's like, yeah, you've temporarily solved a particular conflict, sure, but you haven't solved the fucking problem. And I'm like, dude, that's such a cool way of looking at the point.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's within the context too that Marvel or you know whoever owns them, Disney or whatever, is a corporation, so they have to keep you coming back for the next movie, right? It just shows the system right there. It's the perpetuation of evil and good.
It can't actually be over. And then his
Right.
other point too was,
We should make one movie
because
ever. where it gets
Tucker asked him like, what is evil, right? And he basically said anti-human.
Mm.
So I would obviously expand that, but from the perspective of the opposite being human suffering, death, destruction, you know, so it's kind of easy to see when something is evil in the context of humans, right?
Yeah.
And the point there that he brought back later was why, he said, for example, why do these people like Hillary Clinton? Why do they? Because he said, this was really cool. And this is, I agree with this. Like he said that Trump getting elected in 2016, the people who came together and voted for him, that was the greatest act of human charity ever. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. It was the greatest act of human charity, but the point he said afterwards is because if Hillary Clinton had got elected, tens of millions of people would have died in the war. He said they had it all set up. The table was set. They were going to do this and then this, and it was going to lead to this conflict and that, and then war. And it was going to be like that. And that's what we've always said. Like that's when Trump was elected, we got some space. But Trump getting elected was an expression collectively of enough people going, no, dude, I don't want war. I don't want that shit. I want actually the world to be better, not worse. Like I don't want the same thing anymore. That's why all the system was so against Trump. But it wasn't because Trump is the answer.
Right.
It was because of why, from a certain perspective, everybody wanted Trump.
Yeah.
The problem is mixed in with that was within everybody also the hope that this one leader could do it. Yeah. So all it did was buy time. It did not solve the problem at all. Because obviously Trump gets in and you find out day one, you don't run shit. Like you got to appoint people, you got to get people in there, and then like who do I put? And then you get these people telling you, and it's all just fucked. And so now it's like a lot of people are looking at the point with Trump getting elected. And I mean, it's a much better choice than Biden. It's a much better choice than any fucking Democrat. Like you definitely don't want these people continuing to run the show.
Yeah.
Right. We need something else. And I think if you have to choose, and so it's interesting because now you're choosing the lesser of two evils in a way.
Right.
Not, hey, we you know what I mean? Like, let's move forward. So, but I do see that there's going to be a shit, like we were talking about with the ramping up of the AI and all that stuff, which is cool to a certain degree, because it's going to happen anyways. And we need to not allow other places to be the ones that dominate it. But that doesn't excuse any of us of our responsibility.
Right.
Because it's like, who do you want to create the perfect slavery system? China or the US?
ooh, I don't want to be a China slave.
I would say the US because at least there's a pathway to then direct the point. Either way, it's getting built.
Yeah,
That's all I'm trying to say. Either way, it's getting built, but let's build it in a way where there's a pathway, you know.
I saw this.
But hold on. The point about I was trying to get to with the evil and all that stuff was, okay, well, actually, I lost it. Now. Go ahead. I'll let you continue.
I saw this this like video, and it was making a joke of like it's 2050, you know, you're running for president or whatever, and then like your campaign manager comes over to you and is like, sure, we got it. We got the list of all the chat history of your opponent. You know, we got their porn history, this, that, whatever. It's all right here. We got it. All you got to do is just use this, and he's destroyed. And they give him like a sheet of paper that's got like all the stuff on it, and like he's going up about to begin the debate, and like he sees his opponent, he's like, "It's up," and the opponent sees him, and he's like, "What's up?" And he sees in his opponent's hand, he's got a piece of paper too, and they're like staring at each other, and they're like. And then like he just crumples up his piece of paper. The opponent crumples up his like, okay, all right.
You would think inevitably that has to
Right.
get to that point because somebody's going to have this information on everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
it.
And then it's like the track record, right? And what you build for real, that will speak for itself.
Yeah, the Cernovich point, the despair point, right? He also makes this point of like two things. One, just to go back to the war point, evil, right? The side of evil, whatever you want to call it, the spirit of evil, etc., doesn't care if you're on the good side. If you're on the good side and you're like, hey, we need to go to nuclear war with the evil side, it's like, cool. Yeah, you're the good guys. Yeah, keep going. You're doing great. It's like it just wants to see destruction.
Right. Yeah.
So, and this is the problem with the Christians is like they pick up that cross and they flip it over and it's a fucking sword. And they're like, yes, we're on the righteous side of God. And it's like, millions of people are going to die. And then did it solve the problem? And so it's like, what's the actual solution? But the other point about the despair thing is Cernovich was making this point of like, the reason you go into despair is because one, you're giving up, you think it's over. And he said, he made this really cool statement of like, I forget how he phrased it, but it was basically like the size of the problem essentially is directly proportional to your how small your world is. So like this little thing that happened to you seems like a big deal because your world is so fucking small. You're only thinking about yourself in that very moment.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, every time I've had these seemingly major things come up, what do? I go, no, what's the big picture here? What is my purpose? And then I go, oh yeah, this is not a big deal. Okay. And then you start looking at solutions. Which is like kind of like the law of attraction in its purest form. You know, it's not really the law of attraction. I'm just calling it that because that's how people label it, but it's that whole kind of mindset thinking, right? Of like
you're an attractioner?
Like actual positivity.
You're right, real positivity.
You know what I mean? Like I'm actually going to solve the problem and not just be negative here, you know, but it's not I'm going to feel positive and it's going to work out.
Yeah.
So you can transform that whole thing into what it should be. Same thing with Christianity. And this is like I feel like it's part of my life's mission to get this point across, to help everybody in the world move beyond this point of believing in God and then realizing God is not a separate entity from us. And the reason why your anxiety was relieved, it's just like you said, where do your thoughts come from? They're coming from within you. Maybe you didn't purposely put them all there because someone taught them to you, but they're in you now. They're not coming from outside where Jesus could put that shield on the inside. Like
Jesus
it's not possible. It's not how it works.
He's like on a satellite right now, like beaming down fucking information to you.
The reason why you called upon Jesus and the point was relieved is because within you, you've accepted that Jesus has that power. But you were the one that made the anxiety go away. You just projected it externally within your mind as it's Jesus, because you have within yourself a construct of information that says, I believe I don't have that power. I believe Jesus has that power. But literally, Jesus is just another part of you in terms of what you've constructed. Just like someone else calls it Allah, someone else calls it an angel, someone else calls it the spirit of Waheguru, someone else calls it, this fucking Buddha or some shit. Like, it's just a projection in your mind. It's like in front of you is this screen, and you've taken a bit of yourself and just put it on that screen, and now you believe that the thing on the screen is actually outside of you.
Mhm.
It's just like a bit of you that you're projecting as a experience of yourself outside of yourself. It's not actually. So then you could take everything and realize it's that. Poverty is literally a projection outside of us that we are creating. You can't just go live your fucking life because you were literally participating in the very same system that is causing the poverty, and you want to act like it's okay for you. So if karma is a real thing, which it is actually real, it's just not immediate, and you can build systems to shield yourself from it temporarily, then for you, if since who you are is actually what's best for all, you have to eventually experience the poverty or the suffering that you are putting onto someone else by you participating in the system. And man, I don't know what, well, I know because we talked about it a little bit, but like that same day I was listening to all this other, well, maybe it was previously to that, but I'm thinking that because I was doing stuff out in the yard. But when I was listening to the 8 stages of process,
Yeah.
it's Avery Hudson it again, right? And like, it really just put things into such a cool perspective again of like self-deception and like self-deceivers.
Yeah.
And you might say like, well, I highly recommend everybody to go listen to it again. Even if you just listen to it again, listen to it again. Because Bernard goes through all the 8 stages of all the way from self-deceivers all the way up to self here as life, one and equal, directing reality. And the process everybody is in to get to that point. Because the only solution is self here.
Did you you can also read it, just so you know. I was just reading it.
Where's it?
Pull it up.
All right, hang on.
Pull it up, Jamie.
Pull up.
Yeah, it's so applicable because yeah, we look at all the stuff we talk about on the entire podcast of like developments in the world system, how like where AI is headed, how we're building this global fucking surveillance infrastructure. Yet, like as the starting point of where it currently is, yet you can look at it through these different lenses of in process. So as part of self here, fuck yeah, it's fucking handy, to have that. But well, we'll see it in a moment when Drake.
I mean, it's like wouldn't it be cool to automate things that you need to just come to you instantly without you having to go lift a finger? So if you could build a system that could actually just read your thoughts and like predict in advance what you're going to need.
Go milk my cow and bring me some ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some things I'd want to physically do, maybe not. But like, if it was not being used to abuse, then it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But on the surface, I'm like, do we even really need that shit? Like, self-deceiver.
You're about to read this shit in Chinese, Drake?
Oh, I thought it was.
Oh shit. I knew Destiny was a front for fucking China. Oh, never mind. I just can't read.
Dude, you know what's so funny? Like I was telling Cam this. I was telling Cam about like the jokes now. Oh, because you sent that that thing with Biden and Trump on Kill Tony, right? And I've been noticing the jokes now they're different. It's like it's a completely different culture. Like you're seeing a shift in the culture just right after the assassination attempt, where it's like, okay, we're done with all the DEI stuff, all the woke bullshit.
You see companies like Microsoft starting to like move away their shit. They're like, oh, fucking finally we can get rid of this bullshit. It's like,
yeah.
We didn't even get to that yet about the fucking Windows Windows
Oh,
crash.
the Counter-Strike or whatever, or CrowdStrike.
Yeah, something like that. We'll talk about that.
Counter-Strike.
Same shit.
But,
Call of Duty. Whatever.
Drake, you should pull that up.
Pull what up? The CrowdStrike thing?
No. The fucking 8 stage process. The important shit.
8 stages of what process? What are you talking about?
Drake's just deceiving himself.
I'm a self-deceiver. Did you want to read through it?
I don't think we need to necessarily read it. I think people should go look at it for themselves.
Well,
but at least for us to read to just
points,
look at the point.
yeah. The self-deceiver creates systems. They trap you within words, legal systems, and so forth, right? Anytime people complain about the quote Jews, whether the person is a Jew or not, I'm just saying when you hear people complain about that, that's what they're referring to actually. They just are trying to blame it on one particular group. But you could, like, according to that person's logic, the quote anti-Semite, anybody who participates in using words to trap people into systems, and then you're like kind of fucked, and that's really the problem. It's not. That's why I've always said, like, I'm not interested in blaming a particular group. It's really irrelevant, because you can also be a Jew and have no idea what any of that stuff. Just be a normal person. Yeah. So it's just like a way we can use a word that then actually ends up not solving the problem and just creating more division and conflict and fighting, where you feel like you're on the right side and you're fighting the good fight, but then you end up just, it's like the whole Hitler thing, dude. Regardless of what you believe about the real story, that's not a solution.
Right.
It's just not. Because, I mean,
even though
just fighting a war
solution, he said it was
right, but it wasn't. So anyways, the self-deceiver point, it's like, I don't know what else there is about that other than
well, just that it's in the written word, in the legal word. I think this is the most significant part here.
The people who create, like says, people who create really, okay, sorry.
Because I mean, if you look at, okay, how are our laws written today? Like, who writes the laws actually? If you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, of who's writing the laws, it's not just politicians for law's sake. It's they're being lobbied by corporations to write certain laws that benefit who? Right. Corporations.
Lawyers are paid to write these things, and then they're given to the Congress people and said, here you go. And they're persuaded that they should put this forward and stuff. It's not like there's no way a congressperson, with all the other things they're doing, read 5 different bills they put forward that each are like 1,500 pages.
And here's
just no way.
Here's the thing. Are there laws that you follow that you don't want to follow? Obviously. Like, it has to be that way. And so, like, look at, you pay taxes, don't you? Do you like paying taxes? You love paying taxes?
How would our roads get maintained?
How would our roads get maintained? How?
He's gonna fund NASA.
Right. Right? Like, if you actually look at that, it's like, so the laws actually proscribe what you do. And so it's obvious that, okay, you can be trapped through written word, through legal word. Yeah.
So just a quick point too, that's the level, which is like the deepest level of self-dishonesty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the level where when we talk about changing the system, that's the level where we have to change it.
Yeah. Also,
so just to be clear, like, you go backwards through this process and you'll see when you get to the 8th point or the final point, the whole point is to go back through the system all the way back to the root.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody above this point is just playing within the system that is actually functioning at the first level, which is the self-deceiver. And you say, oh, you say, what do you mean self-deceiver? You're deceiving other people. How are you deceiving yourself? And maybe people try to look at that and try to, like, understand why it's called yourself. Because, and I used this analogy the other day, I was talking to somebody, because we were talking about somebody who said, yeah, they're doing their process, but you have to do the process for yourself. It's not about trying to convince other people. It's not about trying to change anything else per se. It's really just about yourself. And I was like, okay, when you eat a hamburger, before you eat it. It's a cow, okay? But when you're looking at that hamburger, is that hamburger yourself? Well, most people say.
No,
No,
it's a cow.
Okay,
It's a burger.
but you're going to eat it, right? And it's going to be in your body and it's going to affect you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if it has poison in it, did you poison yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you poison a cow before you eat it, but you're going to eat it and you poison the cow, are you poisoning yourself?
Yes.
If you
Yes.
poison the water, are you poisoning yourself?
Yes.
If you cause a nuclear war with a bunch of radiation, are you poisoning yourself?
Yes.
Right? So if you allow an education system, I'm just doing my Alex Jones voice.
Yeah.
If you
that sounds
if you
good.
if you allow an education system that poisons the minds of children and they vote for fucking Joe Biden and that causes all kinds of problems that affect you, are you miseducating yourself?
Yes.
So yourself is not just you. If you're walking your destiny process, saying you're just doing it for yourself and you don't need to focus on anything else, and you even try to argue with other people, they don't need to do that. Are you deceiving yourself, first of all?
Yes.
But you're actually just defining yourself as your consciousness.
Yep.
That's not yourself. Yourself is everything. So yourself is not just yourself, it's self. This doesn't say yourself deceiver, it says self deceiver. You see what I'm saying? If you're deceiving someone else, you're deceiving self. Self is life. The actual what yourself actually is life. And is that equal in everybody? Is it fundamentally different in everybody? It's not. It's fundamentally equal, the same in everybody. The expression of it is different because we have different forms and so forth. So I'm just wanting to clear that up of like, how is this self-deception? Right? It's because you're deceiving self. So the point is you're walking this process to bring self here as life, right? Okay, so I just want to clarify that point.
Yeah.
Self-loser. Now look, and this is a cool point. This is why I brought in the whole Cernovich thing. What is it saying?
They give up.
It's somebody who gave up.
Yeah.
Somebody who goes, they're going to bring forward digital central bank currency, and they're going to have all this AI, and there's nothing you can do about it. Techno-tutor, destiny, it doesn't matter. Self-perfection, you can't do any of it. You can't change it. You can't do anything about it. So yeah, you just fucking gave up. You fucking coward.
Yeah.
Quit being a fucking loser. Quit only thinking about yourself. Like, you're going to cause everybody to suffer for another fucking million years. Quit being a fucking asshole and stand up. You have the tools, okay? If you don't have the tools and you gave up, well, then we'll find you, okay? But if you have the tools and you gave up, or you're just refusing to listen, quit being a fucking asshole. Quit being so much of a coward. You're just a coward. That's all it is. Okay. Self-illusionist.
Yeah.
You unquestionably participate in the system according to what you've been taught. That's all it says it right there. There's all the Christians, all the Muslims, all the Buddhists. You never thought about it. That's why I'm trying to speak to the self-illusioners a lot of times, I guess. Right? Which is like, guys, like, do you really even understand what you believe? Yeah, like, you think you're a good person. You're not a good person. You're just participating in the system. Like, it's like, oh, I'm a good person because, oh, and look, JD Vance, he's a Christian, so he's a good person. And it's like, he's literally going to help bring forth the fucking final ultimate mark of the beast, slavery, fucking AI ultimate control system. Like China's wet dream. What was that whole thing of China? Do you remember that quote? You won't be able to move anywhere on heaven and earth.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
everything under heaven will be known. Some shit like that.
No, it's like you won't be able to take a step or something. Can you find that? You can stop the screen if you want.
Turn off.
See if you can find that quote. I'll talk while you find it. But the self-illusion point of like, it's exact. Okay, perfect example is what we talk about the JD Vance thing, where he says, "Oh, I pray to Jesus and then I have no more anxiety." That is an illusion. You just prayed to yourself. Because, and here's the point. Well, no, I believe Jesus is real. Okay, but if you were honest with yourself, isn't what I'm suggesting a possibility? Isn't it a possibility that actually you do have the power to relieve? Has there ever been a time in your life where you had some anxiety and you decided not to have that anxiety and you didn't anymore. And it wasn't because you prayed to Jesus. And then this time also you prayed to Jesus and you got rid of it. It just seemed like that was so much anxiety. You didn't see how you could do it. Is it a possibility though, that the things that are really hard, you've just projected that within yourself as another entity that you believe is outside of yourself, that you believe has the power to do it, but you actually are the one that has the power because the fucking feelings are coming from inside of you. And ultimately you're the one, you've just deceived yourself into thinking that it's something outside of you. Is it a possibility? Is it a possibility of what I'm saying is true? If you were being honest, you'd have to say, yeah, it's a possibility, but I still believe that Jesus is real. Okay, I understand that, but you see, it's a possibility. So therefore you don't know. You're just to anybody else, to me, it's obviously an illusion because I could stop the anxiety. I've been at the exact same point where it's been so extreme and I just did the forgiveness and it stopped. So what are you saying? Oh, actually Jesus did it for me, even though I didn't call on his name? That would be stupid of him because it certainly didn't make me think he's real.
So I can't find the exact quote, but it's
Has there ever been a Muslim that prayed to Allah and had their extreme anxiety resolved?
Right.
You think that never happened? And why would anyone believe in it then? Or a Buddhist?
It's just low processing.
There's no fucking Buddhist monks who are like, there's no atheists who ever just like meditated enough and then they finally got over it. Like, I know there is because there's very successful atheists. And when you're very successful, you go through a lot of extreme shit and you don't go to the next point unless you get over that shit. So the fact that there's anybody successful who's not a Christian in this system proves that your explanation of it is not the real thing. It's just your explanation of it. It's like, it's like there's a Chinese translation of Destiny, apparently. It's just the Chinese version of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's not you don't have the real answer. You just have because your parents taught you, your Mima fucking told you Jesus is real. And then when it came to the point of you realized, oh, atheism doesn't make any fucking sense. Then you went back to what Mima always told you. And Mima told you Jesus was, and you're like, oh man, maybe Mima was right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or maybe she just fucking believed in Jesus because her fucking parents told her about Jesus.
And it's so insidious too, because it's like, it's you have the common sense within the Jesus message. And a lot of it like is propped up as, it's like it takes some of the cool stuff of common sense, such as give as you'd like to receive, but then it contorts it into this dumbed down fucking version that ends up not getting the same result. Which is,
right. It's like, perfect. Oh, but Jesus has some good points. Okay, so let's say there's A, B, C, D, E. Those are all the points. And B is a really good point. Problem is they do A, B, C, they do A, C, D, E, and they just say B is a part of it, but they never do B. They don't do the one thing that actually made sense. It's like, well, no, I give the charity. That's not what Jesus said. Give as you want to receive isn't, if I was in poverty, I would want somebody to give me charity. Actually, you wouldn't, dude. If you were in poverty, JD Vance, what would you do? Would you want someone to just be like, oh, you poor little helpless soul, let me give you a meal today? Or would you be like, you'd want someone to slap you in the face and be like, stand back up, get an education, fucking go back into work, build a business. Like, you'd want someone to help you get where you're at, not stay fucking homeless.
Yep.
The quote is the China quote. Go ahead. Yeah.
Allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step.
There you go.
You know how they talk about hard times create strong men or whatever? Maybe that's why they use the word hard.
Yeah. I don't see how those hard times are going to create strong men. Those are going to be the hard times.
Right.
I'm glad you found it. I couldn't find it.
I know how to talk. I know how to interface with Google. I know how to pray to Google, get what I want.
You know? All right, everyone just heard that, right? Mitch knows he's interfacing with Google. He's actually part of the techno core.
He's got the nerve. Yeah. Oh shit, dude, that's some deep references.
Deep cuts.
Techno core,
yes, dude. By the way, I'm like deep into Fall of Hyperion right now. He was referring to Hyperion. Oh damn, dude. at first I'm like, okay, come on, what are these things? What is that? What is that? And Katie's
I
like,
feel
oh, you
like-
haven't even got there yet. And I'm at the point where I'm like, oh shit, it's getting crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's yeah, dude. I definitely recommend everybody read Hyperion. I recommended it. I hadn't even finished reading it, but Katie had. And she said it's like the most important one, so I trust her. But now I took a break on the culture stuff because she was reading the one I wanted, or I don't remember why. She's just really persuasive. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep reading Hyperion. Dude, it's crazy. Okay, anyways.
Self-delusioners.
All right.
Delusioners.
I just don't want to move on from the self-delusioners, but yeah, okay. Self-delusioners. So let's see.
They
They use things
mantras.
like meditation, mantras, prayer, energy work, create their own delusion. I know it says Daryl said gurus, but I wouldn't limit it to gurus.
Yeah.
I wouldn't limit it to if you're a guru. I'd say if you're
I
following
think
the
it's
law of attraction.
the people who follow the practice. Yeah, basically like, oh, but like I'm a light worker. Like you don't have to be a guru to be a light worker. You know what I'm saying?
It's like it's very easy to look at these and be like, that seems like the self-illusioner, but it's like they're just taught what they're taught. They believe the illusion. They never question it. They're just in the system. They believe they're a good person. So you feel like, at least I'm a good person, so I don't really need to question this Christianity stuff. That's the self-delusion.
Right. And
self-delusioner is like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the self-delusioner too, it reminds me of like when I first started asking questions, and then I was like, ooh, Christianity isn't the answer. Zen Buddhism, ayahuasca, like these things are the answer. Wow. And then especially if you do something like a psychedelic experience, or you have a meditation experience where you have a very strong energy experience, you're like, that shit was fucking next level. That must be the truth.
So here's the difference that I see with the self-delusioners is like they're working to a higher position from a lower position, whereas the self-illusioners are just, they're happy with where they're at in the system.
Yeah, it's not about they're Christian, because you could have Christians in the self-delusioner point.
Yeah,
it's not about, if you're Christian, you're in this level. It's what you're doing within it, because you could be a law of attraction person and be in the self-illusioner point just because you were taught that and you didn't really question it or something. So the self-delusioner is literally you're creating a delusion for yourself. And it's specifically around the point of like, I'm getting better. And I would say, honestly, just general self-improvement people fall in this as well.
Right. Yes.
It doesn't have to be spiritual energy work per se, although you see a lot of that comes into it.
Yeah.
It's self-improvement is really, he says the South African word self-realized. So that's kind of like the ultimate point maybe of it. Yeah. But it's like you're creating this. And I see a lot of people that, I see sometimes people come into what we're doing, and then they don't really want to go all the way with the self-honesty. They may even get some benefit. Well, they do get some benefit from what we're doing, or they maybe don't even use the tools and don't get the benefit, but they come in and then they just go away. And then I just watch them trying to go to the self-delusioner thing. It's like, you're just trying to improve yourself, get better, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there's levels where everybody participates in all of these points. So it's not about necessarily separating it all of it, but I think people will generally kind of fall more in one category at a certain point in their life. But yeah, like you're trying to create yourself as, I'm the best version of myself.
Yeah.
But there's no principle within it. It's really just for yourself to be the best, but not really even defining what best means. It's really just
to feel the
not
best.
At the low point where everybody's at. You're not in any way. You're like, look, there's a high and there's a low. I'm going to be at the high. You don't realize, no, you're going to be at the low no matter what. And if there's a low, you're going to ultimately be there. That you can't only improve yourself. It's not possible. It's only possible temporarily in a system based on abuse.
Yeah.
Okay. And like that point, he said, glorifying yourself as God when you're not that, in fact. So when we say, I know I'm God, that's not from a, look how hot shit I am.
Right.
It's more like, hey, look, we're all God. That's the fucking problem. That's not a, yo, look, we're God. If we just all knew. It's like the whole divine feminine bullshit. Dude, oh my God. I don't know if did I send y'all the Katy Perry video?
Yeah, you did.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it.
No, I watched like
holy
the first like
shit.
20 seconds of it, and I
oh, you gotta watch the whole thing, dude. I'm like, why is this coming out right now?
No,
oh, come on.
Watch the whole
you're just
thing.
reacting. yeah. Like I'm just dumbfounded as to why. I'm perplexed. Why is this coming out now? it's so weird. I'm like, she's late to the game, dude. But it's all about the divine feminine. It's like it's a woman's world. The chorus is it's a woman's world, or the refrain, whatever. It's a woman's world, and you're lucky to be living in it. And it's like them wearing, like doing the construction and doing everything, and like
the
I don't even think there's a man in the video.
The very first scene is like
Damn.
they're standing up at urinals and pretending to like hold their dicks and pee
With
into
like
the-
construction belts,
Yeah.
you know, on,
Yeah.
but like bikinis or whatever.
and I'm like, I don't
Why are they wearing a bikini?
like is it like is it a trans thing? Is that like I'm trying to figure it out.
There's sort of that weird implication, but it's like the divine feminine, we can do it all. It's just so weird. It's like, dude, like you picked the wrong time to come out with this. I don't think anyone's buying this anymore, you know, but I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's that whole I'm divine thing. And it's like, and I sent that to you guys, and I was like, if everything in this video is true, how can you blame men for anything?
Right. Yeah.
How is it that the feminists can simultaneously say that they're divine feminine and all powerful and can do anything, and then be like, well, we're oppressed by men?
Yeah.
Well, because of the systematic oppression, right? Is that what they call it?
But they're the
Systemic.
divine creators who built the system.
Well,
Oh, the men built it. But
they
you're
were-
so
they were
all powerful,
suppressed.
you didn't
They were
build a
so-
system. It's like they're implicitly recognizing like men built systems. Like- okay, anyways,
Dude,
so
yeah, it's just low processing. That's what it is.
self-justifiers.
Yeah.
So you realize things are not okay in reality. But instead of building groups, so it's like you took the red pill to a certain degree, but you're like,
But
I
then it
don't
got
want to work
lodged
as
in your throat.
I don't want to work as a group.
Dissolve.
I don't want to lose my individuality. I want to do my own thing. Yeah, I'll probably figure it out and maybe it'll make things better or whatever, but I'm not really willing to stand as a group. I don't want to lose my individuality. So it's just all this bullshit. I don't care what you think about it. It's right for me. Just justification.
Yeah.
I mean, we think we all know these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and it's interesting because it's like obviously when what they do is applied, it's not gonna be best for all. Like, not everybody can do what they are doing or what they're claiming.
You
Right.
can't say what's best for me. Who can say, you know, when someone's moving to the self-justifier phase, because they always go, well, I mean, I don't know. You guys are saying it's best for all, but you know, how can you really say what's best for another person? That's like, you're a self-justifier. Got it.
Yeah, they require some form of separation to have identity,
Yep.
and that is obviously their downfall. Nice.
They'll, according, obviously their downfall, they'll have justifiable reasons why their fear or point of separation is valid according to them. Okay,
Yeah.
I was just looking at that. Okay.
Okay, so then it also makes this point here of just like the oneness is the oneness of self-delusion, and self-delusioners move to the self-justifier where they claim the oneness is a form of uniqueness as a form of free will, but that is delusional. Yeah, that's like
Also, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say just that point of like they because it seems like, oh, you know, you're getting to the point of like you're seeing that things are not okay, right? And it's also interesting that this is beyond the point of the self-delusioner, right? But then it's still just justifying their self-delusion, you know?
It's like you realize, oh, just trying to get to the point of only my self-improvement, I'm God. You see kind of through that a little bit. But then it's like, that's why I was saying there's elements of everything. It's almost like you're also going to the point of what was it? It's like I was gonna say like maybe the self-deceiver. It's like, or the self-illusioner rather. It's almost like you're like, well, I can't be at the top because I see through that, but I'm just gonna kind of be okay with everything. So it's like you see all the elements of before still coming through because
Yeah.
you're really just being a loser. You're like, I can't change anything, but I don't really want to be at the bottom, so I guess I'll just be in the middle. I think that's really where it's at. It's like, I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to be at the bottom. I don't want to be a loser. I can't be at the top. I don't want to be at the top. I see the problem with that. I don't want to abuse so much that I'm at the top. You know what I mean? Like I realize like those people are like, I'm not charismatic enough maybe to be at the top of being, you know,
Sure,
so
yeah.
I'll just be okay with it. So you kind of have some self-illusion or point in there, you know, but you just try to figure out a way where it's like, I can be okay. Right.
Yeah.
What number is this? 4 or 5?
That was 5. That was
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
to middle class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Self-realizer.
Self-realizers.
You realize there's a problem. You have to do self-correction. You'll do their self-forgiveness, self-honesty. They're walking backwards. You're not really trusting yourself at all yet. So you're basically in the process.
Yeah.
You're still building the self-trust. So there's still going to be fear there. It's like when we talk to somebody who's walking this process, but there's still so much fear there. This is not a judgment. It's just seeing where you're at, where it's like, okay, I haven't yet really trusted myself. Because it's kind of like, well, how do I know if this is going to work out? It's like, well, let me ask you a question. When you get to the point of despair, are you going to give up? Because if no, that's equal self-trust. And then you realize, oh, fuck, I'm probably going to get to that point once, twice, 3, 4, 5, a million times in this process. So when I stop fearing that and I'm trusting myself, now I'm at a different point within my process. Because now I'm actually moving myself for real. So that's the self-perfecter point. Maybe not completely, but
That's self-realizer, you mean?
yeah.
Self-realizer, and then on to the self-perfecter, which basically, like, at the self-perfecter, now you can be here with breath, but you still have to like actually apply yourself and think about it and like push yourself to go and do the work. And I love this. It's like you reach the point of nothing. Like, okay, well, there is no other alternative or whatever. This is what it's got to be.
Right. There's still work to be done. You still have to do it. There's still fears there. This is my interpretation. There's still fears that will come up, but it's not going to stop you. So in other words, it's not like you're just this free floating, blissful, everything is perfect and fine. And like everything's no resistance. You're still having to do it. It's just, you've gone past the point of, I don't trust myself anymore. Like I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
This is not by the way, none of these are like you've reached some status. You get a badge, like, oh, come in. You are level 7 now, and you get a badge, and you are a self-perfecter, and you get a pat on the head and recognition. Like, no, this is just for you and your own self-honesty, okay? This is not some status symbol. That if you're there, dude, you're still fucking, I don't know where you're at in here.
Yeah. I like the part too where it says you're now starting to apply equality within self-perfection in your daily life, and you are now starting to understand your role you play within creation and how it plays out, and how within limitation can be perfect within and as breath.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't that why it's called self-perfected?
Literally.
And Mitch is probably thinking like, yeah, I don't even know if I processed all of that back then when we called it that. But like, hey, that's like the spirit of life working through you, man, because like it makes fucking sense. But the problem is, maybe within self-perfected, maybe the podcast is different, but like, Friday Night Hangouts, right? It's a little bit more kind of open to everybody.
Mhm.
Maybe we should have called this self-illusion.
Self-illusion to self-realizing.
Self-delusion.
Yeah. Self-realizers. And then
hey,
finally,
we welcome all stages.
yeah. Then finally self-here. You're just here. I love how short this one is. You're just here. And you're able to move between all the dimensions that is existent without any effort. Okay.
All the dimensions.
Yeah.
You could go anywhere in reality. Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't get access to that. I'm not sitting here pretending like I have access to it. Okay, just to be clear with everybody. I'm just saying. Also, I say you, I mean we don't get access to it.
Listen,
until you walk the process.
Right,
You don't. It's not like, oh, I can delude myself into like that's where the self delusion comes in. Of like, oh, I'm done with my process. I can. It's like, no, you're not actually at that point because it would be evident.
I was astral projecting.
And you won't even need to fucking tell anybody. You won't care. It's like irrelevant.
Astral projecting yesterday, okay, and I went and talked to
you
Jesus
were asshole projecting.
as oh
that's what that was.
You were talking to Jesus out of your ass. So even the Christians, you can have the self-illusionists. Meemaw was a self-illusioner.
Meemaw.
Yeah, haven't you read Hillbilly Elegy?
No.
Or maybe it was Mama.
Is that on your bookshelf?
No.
No, you're right. It was Meemaw or Mama, something like
Mama.
that. I think it was Mama.
Dude, like when I was growing up, like my grandma was Mama. And I wasn't allowed to call her grandma.
My grandmother was Mama, but it was like,
No, not mama. It was mama.
oh,
Mama.
I mean, I think that's actually literally what is that? What I think that's what JD Vance called his.
I don't
Grandma.
know.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what mama even means.
I called my grandmother
Sounds confusing.
Mama, but
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
just a Spanish. Like, yeah. Anyway, Mama.
Sounds stressful. Just you have to think about how you enunciate your voice, or you get fucking hit.
My grandfathers were Papa, whatever their name was.
Oh, okay.
Papa Cope.
No, it'd be like
Just
Papa
kidding.
George.
Papa
Oh,
George. My grandfathers were Papa and Spanish Papa.
wow. Mine was so simple. It was just Grandma and Grandpa S and Grandma and Grandpa B, and that was it.
You just said
Very
B?
easy. And then I just got cookies from one of them.
Just
Yeah,
one.
you're not Southern. Southern, you gotta
Yeah.
like, you gotta
Yeah,
You
you
gotta
gotta like you gotta
overcomplicate
like
a
get
little
in your
bit.
place.
You got to give the title and their name and
You need like a peepaw or something in there.
a
If you get a
peepaw.
peepaw or a meemaw or a mamaw or a mama, if you say mama, that's just your mom. But if you say mama, now we're
Yo,
talking.
that sounds just fucking difficult.
Wow, no, it's unconscious.
Man,
It's sort of like it's like an Indian caste system in a
Mm.
way.
Tell me about this. Tell me about this caste system.
And then I had a granny.
Uh,
That was a
the
great
fuck is
grandparent.
Granny here?
That was a great
Oh,
grandparent.
okay.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I had multiple grannies. Those were the. Oh, and then my great grandfather was called Daddy.
Daddy.
Yeah. So you notice like it's like levels. It's like you're a mama, you're a
it's like the
mama.
stages of process.
Yes.
Wow.
So like we
wow.
had it like everybody
Then when
called
they
the great
die, what happens?
grandfather.
Are they self here or are
The Grand
they
Wizard,
back to the
right?
start?
They called him the
Yeah.
Grand Wizard.
Yeah.
Oh
No, we
shit.
called him Daddy Jim.
Daddy Jim.
Wow.
That's cute.
Was he kind to you, Cameron, or was he
He's pretty cool. He was an Air Force bomber pilot in World War II, and
Oh,
then
wow.
started a farm. This is not
the one who
biological.
had
This is someone
the
adopted.
whole whatever you call it, storage.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
Nice. Got that download for 7 years. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's why I was trying to go to the Air Force Academy.
Maybe.
Maybe that's why you're so into fucking farming now.
Maybe that's why. Yeah.
I was just looking at some of the other things that we had talked about. Amber Rose. It talked
Dude,
about,
Stupid.
The Jesse Lee Peterson. Is it Jesse Peterson? That's what
Yeah.
it's called, right?
Yeah.
They had a cool perspective on it. I don't know if you watched that thing. I don't know if I sent that one.
I did, but I don't remember. What was it about?
It was just cool because like I'm watching on X all the different people talking about everything. It's just cool to kind of assess where everything's at. And like all the groypers, like your Nick Fuentes and all these guys are really pissed because there's too many immigrants being talked about, too many sluts, too much,
right.
right. They like, we want it right-wing Christian nationalism.
Right. Yeah.
So they're upset about that. Katie goes, wait, his last name's Fuentes? I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny actually.
Yeah. Right.
But the Amber Rose point's interesting because people are getting upset about all the demonic pictures of her and stuff, and I get that there's that. I mean, it's just weird, but again, it's going to that whole Christian thing of like, oh, demonic equals bad. I'm not saying it's good. It's just like that, if that's what you're reacting to, because she gets up there and she says, Trump doesn't care if you're gay, if you're black, white, gay, whatever. It's all love.
Yeah.
And then people were reacting to that, and like the Jesse Lee Peterson guys were like, hey, she didn't say explicitly if you're gay and you love a gay person, that's love. What she said was Trump doesn't care who you are, it's all love.
Yeah.
And so they were said if you're reacting, and somebody, and Jesse Lee Peterson goes, yeah, the people who are saying that kind of stuff about it, like they don't like what she said, they don't have any love in them.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're right. These Christian people don't love anybody.
Yeah.
They're just fucking liars.
Yeah.
And then I saw Jesse Lee Peterson put up a tweet on X. I think you tweet on X, right? You still tweet. It's X, but I think you still tweet when you
X
tweet.
on X.
You don't X on it.
The X.
I'm on X. If I tell somebody I'm on X, That's not good, right? X sounds like a drug.
Yeah. So
It's like way stronger than E.
it's stronger than me.
Dude, my farm, I'm on eggs.
On eggs.
Okay, but anyways, he put up a tweet and he said, "Is Jesus the Son of God, or is
Oh,
he
yeah.
God?"
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
I
And
saw
you could
that.
see him arguing people like that. I would say, from his perspective, Jesus is not God.
Right. Yeah.
So he's like a Christian, but not like. So there's so many different ways of being a Christian. You can't even be like Christianity is the answer because there's so many ways you can interpret it.
Oh, the H-stage process is so great because it just helps you really make sense of like, oh, there's like a threshold that that person has to hit if they want to go to the next level. You
Yeah.
know?
I was just looking at that point of like what you just said of like, there's so many different ways that you can look at it within Christianity. Same thing with Islam as well. There's like different ways that there's different sects of Islam, but we just here in the Western, society, we're like, there's all these denominations of Christianity and like Islam is just lumped into just one thing, you know?
But
Um,
most Muslims are just self-illusioners. In
well,
fact, I watched this video of this Muslim girl. Remember that we talked about before,
yeah.
where she goes to Sweden from Ethiopia,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Dude, I didn't even really get exposed to what the fuck Islam's really about until I met all these extremists in Sweden." Because
Yeah.
when you're in Ethiopia, you're just a Muslim. You didn't fucking read it. It's like it's like you grow up in the South. You're a Christian. Like you don't know. Like you just go to church every Sunday. You don't really fucking listen, and the guy's interpreting it for you. Like you didn't read the Bible really. And then
Yeah.
even if you're like, no, but I read the Bible, dude, I'll tell you, 5 different people who read the Bible come to a different conclusion. In fact, the people who really fucking read it,
Yeah.
they go hardcore into the gematria and shit, and they're like, and then this predicts that, and it's like they're getting hardcore. You could read the Bible and then 13 different levels.
Yeah.
There's people who take it apart and they line up all the words in columns, and then they figure out the probability of when you add up the number of values of these numbers, and then you get these patterns of numbers, and then it's like, and it's pretty compelling. Wow. If you listen to it, you're like, wow, this is pretty interesting. You know what I mean? Like, how do you fucking deal with that? It's like, no. I just pray to Jesus and he relieves my anxiety. And Mima was right. I'm like, you're not even like trying, dude. You're just like some fucking watered down pretend Christian. I don't know what you are. And your wife's Indian and she's like a fucking Hindu or some shit. Like you're not even a serious Christian.
Right.
Both graduated from Yale Law School though, apparently. So I don't know. Maybe that's they both graduated from Yale Law School.
That's the real reality of it. It's got nothing to do with Christianity. It's like you went to Yale. So of course you're going to be president.
Exactly.
Oh, and now real quick. This election, all the AI backing, Elon, Peter Thiel, all this stuff, I don't think it has anything to do with Trump. My interpretation of it is, and I'm not saying I have proof, it's just where I'm at in my interpretation of it is, it was a real assassination attempt. Billionaires think fast. They were like, let's capitalize on this. Because he could have died and then it would have been something else. I think it was a real thing. They were like, let's capitalize. I don't think the tech elite staged it because they wanted Trump to get elected and they knew it would. I just think that's possible, but unlikely.
I wonder too, when did Trump pick Vance as well? I'm sure they saw
he was already in the running.
Yeah. But
I think from my perspective, it was after this, that was when the decision was made. Why was he waiting so long? Why was he waiting so long? But my point is this: why is it that guy? Why is suddenly all you see the tech people are like pro-Trump now? Even like, you know what I mean? Like Mark Zuckerberg, that was an endorsement, whether he says it was or not. He said, I'm not endorsing him, but that was pretty badass. It really made me feel good about being American or whatever he said.
Yeah.
What are we saying? Like, hey, like Katie has been pointing out, Katie has been pointing out, we need everybody fucking hyper nationalist. Let's go, America, patriot. We need to fucking dominate because we need to fucking rebuild this shit. We need to fucking go to the next level. We need energy. We need fucking nuclear power plants. Fuck green energy. We need to do it like to the next level. American spirit. Because otherwise, these tech billionaires are like, China's gonna steal our computer data, and like they're angry. They are jealous. They don't want China to fucking do it first. So I'm not saying it's all good. It's just that's where it's like, dude, Trump's the one. Let's go. But we're going to get Vance in because I think Vance is the future. It's not Trump. How old is Trump, dude? Like, is he even going to last a whole term? I don't know. Right. I mean, he's pretty energetic guy, but I'm just saying, like, you don't know. And it's like they want their insurance policy is we would need Vance because he gets it. He was in Silicon Valley. He's a business person. He's, you know, and I really think that's the point.
Yeah, I was just going through some of the notes that you had sent, like voice notes or not voice, the text notes about some of the videos that you were sharing. And I was looking at the Edward Bernays 2.0 thing because I was thinking the same thing of like Edward Bernays, like when you watch, let's say, Century of the Self, the Century of the Self, um, it's like it seems like, oh, that was something that happened in the past. You know, like you could get that impression of, okay, so this is what happened, and you know, it's shaped.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like people wouldn't probably get that because, you know, like there's still focus groups. Companies still use all this stuff. Like, I
Yeah.
don't see why you would think it's not done anymore.
I mean, like all the footage that you're seeing, it's like it seems like this
Sure,
whole
but like,
thing,
what you
whatever.
think companies don't still use these techniques and you know,
Okay,
focus groups exist.
But consider from this perspective, it's not like necessarily the focus group. It's just the perspective of like people think they're actually voting for one person, you know, and like this, like the savior point or whatever.
Dude, you know what? Self-illusioner.
Self-illusion. You know what?
It's the same point. It's the same point. You
Labels.
believe in Jesus. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I'll ask you 5 questions and I'll get to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, which means you didn't think it through. Like,
Right.
I can show you don't actually believe it, because if you actually believed it, you would have thought through every point and you'd be certain about every point. And I can easily get into like, play with me for just a moment. Okay.
Okay.
Why is there evil?
Like, am I speaking as a Christian or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because people don't follow God
Why didn't God just make him to follow him?
because he gives us free will.
Okay, so evil exists because of free will. So we have free will. It's God doesn't take it, won't take that away from us, correct?
Exactly.
Would he ever take it away from us?
God's given us free will.
Why?
So that we can decide to love him and follow God.
So that you can do what?
So that we can show that, you know, we are worthy of being in the presence of God. And
What happens when you die? Okay, go to heaven, right? So you go to heaven. Okay, do you have heaven? You have free will in heaven?
Yeah.
Really? So if someone chose to in heaven, they could be evil.
Well, no one would actually choose to be evil. That's how you get into heaven in the first place. Is because
But you still have free will. So is it possible to choose an evil thing in heaven?
I don't see how it would be possible because you've proven that you don't use your.
Well, do you have free will or not? But do you have free will? Is it possible?
I'm sure it's possible. Well, I don't think God would allow it. No, he'd
so there's no free will.
Well, he'd remove you from heaven if that was the case.
So that means you don't have free will in heaven.
Well,
you can't be in heaven and exercise free will.
Well, you would have free will, but to do like only, you know.
But then
like,
you're gone.
Yeah, if you.
So you don't have free will. Like you have to go and comply with all the rules to be in heaven. Can you be on Earth and have free will and exercise your free will?
Yeah.
That's what it means to have free will. Because I'm saying, why is there evil? Why is there no evil in heaven?
Because you get removed.
So you can't be in heaven and have and exercise free will like on Earth.
I guess so. I don't know.
So do you have free will in heaven or don't you? Like to say like, well, you have it, but you can't exercise it. You can't choose anything. It means you don't have free will. You get removed. Do you get removed from Earth by exercising free will poorly?
Well, think about it this way. I mean, if you're here on this planet and you shoot somebody, you can exercise that, but then you go to jail. So so
there's jail in heaven. There's something like jail in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. You get removed from heaven. That's it. It's the same thing.
Or you're in like
but that's humans doing it. God's not putting you in jail on Earth.
True. Okay.
Why did God give us free will on Earth?
But there's still a consequence to your free will. Like you
I'm not
go to heaven or you go to hell.
Why didn't God just make it so we don't choose evil?
So that you could have that choice to be with God, and those who don't choose that, they could go and be in hell.
But do you still have free will even when you're in heaven? Do you have the choice to do evil?
You wouldn't do evil though, because that's how you got.
But you're not answering the question.
Well, the question doesn't make sense.
Do you have free choice? And
I'm
you have
sure
free will in
you
heaven.
have free choice, but I guess if you did something evil, then you would get removed from heaven. It doesn't make sense. You'd get
So
removed from
God,
heaven before you do the evil.
so you don't have free will.
You'd get removed. Yeah.
No. Free
Why-
will means you can do whatever you want.
But why would God allow you to do evil in heaven? It doesn't make sense.
Okay. Why wouldn't God just create heaven with everybody in heaven, and people who do bad things, you remove them?
Yeah.
Why didn't he just do that in the first place?
Oh, you mean like not on earth?
Yeah, like when you just create heaven,
Yeah.
everyone has free will. If you
Uh-huh.
do anything bad, you get removed.
Because he wanted you to prove that you have free will, so you wouldn't have to get removed.
Couldn't I do that by? But what happens to the people who get removed from heaven in your scenario? Where do they? What happens with them?
But I don't think
Go to
anybody
hell.
gets removed
No, no,
from
no.
heaven. I don't think they're actually.
They go
But
to
then they
hell
don't have
to
free
spend
will.
time with
But they're
Satan.
not doing evil.
Hold on. Hear me
That's
out.
how they got there in the first
Hear me
place.
out. Hear me out. Hear me out. What happens to the people who don't get to go to heaven?
They go to hell.
So they don't get to be in heaven.
No.
Why didn't God just create heaven and put all the people who would choose heaven there, and just put all the people who he created that are bad in hell? Why do we need to go through this process of choosing?
Because he's given us free will to prove who we are, to show.
Why couldn't he already know that? What we would, because like when you go to heaven, you're not allowed to use your free will anymore, right?
I'm not saying you're not allowed to use free will. I'm just saying he.
But you
removes-
are, because you
I'm
say you'd be
saying it
kicked out
prevents
if you're
you
there.
from being evil.
Who? What does?
God prevents you from being evil.
So then you don't have free will anymore.
Well, no, if you know, if you had the right to shoot somebody and I prevented you from shooting them, you know, then
But that's in a world where we're allowed to have free will.
that's what I'm saying.
Right. But you're saying in heaven, you'd be prevented from even exercising the free will to do something. Like, would God allow you in heaven, if someone just chose to hurt somebody?
No, you wouldn't do that either, though, because you're in heaven.
And it doesn't matter what you would do.
But you wouldn't do that because you're in heaven and everything is all
Or you
taken
wouldn't be
care of
able
in
to,
heaven.
because you're just like a floating blob and you can't hurt
Why
anyone in
wouldn't you
heaven.
do it?
Because everything is taken care of in heaven. There's no need for you to hurt anybody.
But then why wouldn't God create that in the first place where we would have no need to hurt anybody?
Well, he did, and then we disobeyed that in the garden.
No.
Eden.
You said we had free will from the beginning.
Yeah, but he gave us a beautiful place where.
So if being there and having free will, but everything being great means you wouldn't exercise your free will poorly, like you said would happen in heaven, then why didn't it happen in Garden of Eden?
Because the devil came in and tempted the Eve and Adam.
So there was already someone who had fucked it up before us.
Well, it was the serpent, And
So God didn't create a place where everything was perfect. He also allowed in that place somebody who is bad. So he created a heaven.
Yeah.
And he allowed evil people in there, even though you said in this other heaven there won't be anyone allowed in there.
Right. Yeah.
So how is heaven going to be different than the Garden of Eden?
Well, he won't allow the serpent in there, I don't think.
Yeah.
But why didn't you just do that in the first place?
I don't know.
You don't know.
To test us.
Hold on. Here's my point. And I know you're playing along with me, but like you have this conversation with any Christian, they're just going to start be like, well, because this and maybe because of that. Like they don't fucking know. It doesn't make sense. They're just trying to come up with answers like you're doing. Well, maybe it's this or it's because of that. And it's like, none of it actually makes sense. None of it is convincing me. Like, okay, like I'm a reasonable person. If something makes sense, I'll be like, that makes sense. No one has ever been able to make it make sense. And they always do, like we talked about Stephen Meyer, where they go, well, I'm satisfied with that. You're like, how? I thought you were reasonable.
Yeah.
A child who's innocent, who suffers on earth, is suffering because of the free will misuse back in the past.
Yes. Yeah. That is what is happening.
But that makes no sense. Like that, it was a God who allows it. So that way, then we can choose to go to heaven.
That's my point of saying of like, I mean, yeah, God exists and it's not that God. It's not like,
Yeah, I get that.
Like,
But you see what I'm saying? But like, it's like God allows free will. It allows us our choice, but then he just wants a bunch of people who will never choose to do anything bad.
Yeah.
why didn't you just create those people in the first place and not create the other ones? No, I wanted you to go through a long process of suffering. Like, all of the story actually makes sense if you accept the fact that this God is not an all-powerful, omnipotent God. Because otherwise it's like, well, but God wanted us to love him and freely and stuff. And it's like, all of that is fine. But then to think that at the end of the day, the way you get to heaven is just by believing in him. So let's say God did all the things everyone believes, and he's doing this test for us and everything. What is it that God actually wants us to figure out so that when we go to heaven, he's like, I trust you here. I want you here. Is it just that we believe in God? What does that mean?
Not that.
Huh?
It's not that you just believe in God. It's that you equalize yourself to God.
But what I mean is, like, even a Christian, if you really look at it, it's like, so the person in heaven is somebody who truly just knows God is real, believes in God, follows God's rules. Wouldn't that just couldn't you just do that here?
Sure.
Why do we need to go to heaven to experience that? Wouldn't that be, we could literally just follow
life
that
is
here.
hard and people are stupid. That's why. And
But think
it's
about
easier to just think of
as
going
a
to
Christian.
Uh-huh.
Here's what I'm trying to say. As a Christian, let's say you went to heaven and you saw there was inequality there.
That would obviously be there.
Wouldn't you be like, this must not be it?
Or you'd be like, well, God must have some plan, and I'm gonna keep
I'm a
being
tough to work
And then
harder.
imagine you go to this thing and you're like, wait, I'm getting fooled here. This isn't actually heaven. Is the solution in that moment to prove to God you should go to the next level of actual heaven, that you go, oh, nope, this ain't real. I believe in you, God. This is not it. Take me up. Or is he expecting you to be like, wait, why is that kid not eating enough food? Why is that person being hurt? Stop that. Let me fix that. Let me figure out why that's happening. Solve that problem.
Yeah.
Like, do you see how everyone's taking the point of, well, because we have free will, you just have to stop using your free will to against God and accept God, because then when you die, you'll be able to go to the heaven place where you can be trusted that you'll always follow the rules that God has, because those rules are rules that actually make things work effectively.
Yeah.
But how did you believing in God and following the Bible prove that you could actually physically operate in that kind of a system? Because the place where you could have proven that you could do something like that is here, where there's an actual system in place that needs to be changed. And instead you're like, I'm just going to survive long enough in here and put my belief. It's so, think about it. You're going to suffer one way or the other on the earth because the system's fucked. But if I could just get through the suffering and show my allegiance to God, that is proof that I deserve to go to heaven. That is not a valid criteria. Because then if you actually then listen to anybody who believes in God, they always give some stupid fucking examples of the proof of like, oh, I prayed to Jesus. I showed my obedience to God by putting my faith in him to relieve my anxiety. And I showed that I am not the powerful one. That's what God wants? Hold on. That's all God wants? He just wants us to like put our faith in him? That's it? He could have easily fucking got that result in a whole different, like, that was the point. And then to then go like, oh, but we need to lead our country. Some actual real practical details from that same starting point.
I just want you all to know that I'm the powerful one, but I need you to do it in this really convoluted way. You know, just live your life, and then you'll come back to me eventually and see that you should have listened to me to begin with.
Any of the points that somebody would be like, well, but here's the actual real physical practical things you could do on earth that would be in alignment with your believing in God, you could do those without believing in God. the problem is the actual problem. So I'm not trying to argue with a Christian who's never gonna, like, they're stuck in the self-illusioner phase or the self-delusioner phase. They're never gonna, they have to have the self-honesty to move out of it. But I'm just looking at the actual logic of it. The actual problem you could sit down and look at what is the actual things that would be in alignment that are best to do, that would be in alignment with your belief in God. Like, if I believed in God, I would do X, Y, and Z. You could just do those things without the belief in God, right? Like, do you have to have belief in God to choose to use your free will in the best way?
No.
Why do you need the God existing? So the problem actually that exists is that we think without there being a God, we cannot within ourselves see the value of having an actual highest purpose.
Yeah.
Of using our free will in the best possible way. The only way we could do that is if we accept that there's a higher power that justifies it. That is the problem. It's like the person going, I can't ultimately, there's a certain level of anxiety I cannot get rid of in myself. I need that highest power to be the one that does it. It's not, and I'm like, it's just you doing it. You're just projecting that final highest point as something outside of you, call it Jesus, whatever. But it's actually just you. So I'm saying the ultimate point of the highest possible purpose that justifies why we should actually do ultimately really what's best for all. We're still stuck that it has to be this highest purpose that externally exists outside of us, because otherwise, why would anyone do it? I'm like, for the benefits.
Someone told me of this.
Why would I want to be in heaven with a perfect existence if there's no God there? Because it's heaven. Like, why does it matter if there's a God or not? Well, it couldn't exist if there's no God. Now we're getting to the actual problem, because that's got nothing to do with fucking free will, choosing God, loving God. It's like, no, you're literally in a slave plantation and you think that you have to love the master, and you can't, but you're so justifying it as like, no, it's not about he's a master of slavery. It's like, I want to live in that house one day, but the master won't let me in there if I don't love him. And it's like, yeah, that's fucked up. Why can't you just get together with your friends and just build a fucking nice house for everybody? You all build it. You know how to do the work. You're just afraid that there might be that master who's going to come punish you. Like, do you see? It's so immature, the whole thing.
That's that point right there.
I remember
he's real and he comes and fucking kills me and puts
also, you can't see how you're going to get the Muslims to agree with you. You can't see how you're going to get the Buddhists to agree with you.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's not possible to do it here on earth. But it has to be possible. Otherwise, I would go insane and I would have total existential dread all day long. So, because I can't continue to exist without the possibility of heaven, and I can't see it possibly happening on earth, it has to exist elsewhere. You see what I'm saying? Versus, no, what if everybody on earth dropped the need for there to be a God? Could we come together? Well, no, because you need to believe in a higher power for it to happen. Clearly, that's not true, because has China built a pretty fucking technologically advanced society out of nothing?
Yeah.
Look at Indonesia. Singapore, I think, right? Singapore is like super fucking advanced. Look at Dubai. They're all fucking heathens believing in Islam stuff. And yet, look at what they are able to do just because they know how to play the money game, because they have some resources.
Yeah.
Like, do you need God to do it? Like, oh, well, they believe in a higher power. Do they believe in the right one? No. Okay. So let's all just be Muslim then. It works.
So I remember hearing this story. I don't know exactly. I don't remember who wrote this book or what, or the title of the book, but somebody was telling me about it. This was years ago. And they're saying it's like a sci-fi, it's set in the future or whatever, but the concept is like there's things like you can have a gun, but in order to use the gun, you have to believe that the gun would work, right? And so, but if you have any doubt, then it doesn't work. And so people do all these like rituals to make themselves believe that if I complete all these rituals, it has to work. And then they go and they can use the gun and it'll fire, right? And like there's some character who's like he just believes in what he does and just like he's able to shoot guns and shit. Like he doesn't have to do all the rituals and everything like that. But it's that point that you're bringing through of like, because at the end of the day, you're creating this character in your mind so that you can forgive yourself, but by using this like ritualistic form of like to get to this level of belief. And that's exactly essentially what you're saying of like, well, the Muslims, they believe in God too. It's like, oh, because it's acknowledging that they are doing this exact same.
So even
ritual
if you
within
pretend
themselves.
there's a higher power, because clearly you're getting it wrong,
Yeah.
it still clearly somewhat works. So it's
Right.
clearly not the actual power of God. It's like, well, God's like, well, you didn't get the Jesus part right, and you got some other things wrong. So I'll give you like 50% blessings. But if you get 100% if you're fully Christian. So you just get
Right.
like a certain, if you're atheist, now shit, there's some successful ones there too. I mean, Richard Dawkins. I mean, yeah, well, they get what's coming to them eventually. The mob comes for them. It's like, well, I mean, I think here's why I'm pushing it so hard, this point about Christianity, because we're getting set up right now for everything to swing back towards that and for it to become popular and cool and everyone's, and like, so you can all be fooled into creating the perfect AI control slave system, the literal fucking what you believe is the mark of the beast. I mean, really, like
Yeah.
actually, like that's what's being created right now. That full expression of that, and your illusions about Christianity is being used to do it. Everybody's beliefs about God is being used to do it. That's what's happening right now. So I want to support as many people as possible to go like, oh, I can see through this and I can see the way forward, because it's like, think generations in down the road. You think TikTok is bad for kids?
Dude.
What's going to be the fucking AI, perfected AI version of that with
Dude,
Neuralinks and shit?
just on that
Elon
point,
Musk is doing the Neuralink. He's backing Trump.
just on that point of like the TikTok thing, right? I went over to someone's home and their great grandmother gets on her phone and like we hear the phone and it's like doing some like songs or whatever.
She's like,
And
wow, that's nice.
and this person was like, oh, she's on TikTok again. I'm like, your great grandmother watches TikTok? She's like, yeah, she loves
It's
it.
Sorry, no, we call
She'll
her
be on there for
Mama.
yeah.
Meemaw.
yeah. Something like
Meemaw, someone take Meemaw's phone.
Nana or something like that. But
Meemaw's out there going like,
yeah, but like she's saying she'll be on there for hours, and I'm like, look at that! Like they've got the algorithm down to a science where they know, like, okay, you're this old person or whatever. Like, yes, we got you too. You're this young person. Here's what you're interested in, and it's like for hours, people will. And someone just told me the other day, oh yeah, somebody else, completely different home. They're saying the same thing. I'm just like, yeah, I tried TikTok when it first came out, just to check it out, see what it was. 4 hours went by, and I was like, "Oh, I need to delete this right now because I can't handle this." This is like the very first time I opened it, 4 hours just went by like that. I was like, "Wow, I can't do this." No,
Really?
right?
Damn.
Yeah, and so exactly what you're saying. Like, okay, what's the AI version of that? Because it doesn't even have to be like. I know you're bringing in the Neuralink part of like it's hooked into your brain and like you can't escape. But
I mean, that's just like one
it
part
doesn't
of
even
it.
have to do that, and it's
No.
already like you're sucked in,
Yeah.
you know, and again, you know, this is like it's inserting ideas into your mind of how to think about certain topics, how to think about Israel, how to think about Joe Biden, how to think about history or whatever.
I think the vast majority of the world is at the self-illusioner point.
Mhm.
So
of like
because
first
they're just
world,
going along with their program.
of the
They're not
first
even
world, yeah.
questioning it. Yeah. I mean, no, even the third world.
Self-illusioner?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. They just believe what they were taught.
Hmm.
Then I
What
wonder if so then the one after that, right, is the self-delusioner, where it's like they're looking at, the light and whatever. That'll be like the AI then. They're like, oh, like
well,
now
my
I
point was just that if vast majority of people are at the self-illusioner phase and then they're just on, because like I'm looking at a TikTok, I'm not going to be afraid of like it's going to program me.
Yeah.
But if you're in a self-illusioner state, then you're just going along with all your programming, no matter what thought is in any phase. Do
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
No, I was just thinking of like the third world as like self-loser more so.
No,
Because they're
so it's not about your economic state. It's about your who you are within your response to your environment.
yeah, I don't think a loser is the average. There's obviously losers, but
There's self-losers in the first world.
yeah, no, I agree.
Right. So it's not about a self-loser is someone who has given up.
Mm.
The average person farming in Africa has not given up. They're just going along, surviving, believing probably in voodoo and all witchcraft and shit, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Or they're Muslim or Christian or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
So
wow.
I'm in it more from the perspective of psychologically, not economically.
Okay.
Then
Yeah.
how do you see the transition then, Cameron, into the self-delusioner stage?
Well, they're
Like
trying to
I
better
see the big
themselves.
push
They may
of
not. Oh, like, I mean,
no, I'm saying in the context of where things are headed.
well, think of all the
It
Africans
can
that you
raise
see.
this.
Think of all the
Mhm.
Africans you see that are getting TikTok, that are getting Facebook, etc., and then they're like studying your wish is your command and stuff, and then they're showing like their money, and it's nothing, whatever. But they're trying to be that self-improvement point. I'm seeing it. I see it happen.
Oh, what about all the like the Africans that do those scams? Like that they're trying to survive, really. Like well, I don't know. That could be a self-delusioner. That could also be a self-illusioner.
But again, that's a very specific point that's nothing to do with those 2 points. Like,
yeah.
this is again who you are within your realization of you as self. So someone could be running a scam just because it's kind of like a job.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So it doesn't really in itself, like you could be a doctor, like that guy that we talked about, that neurosurgeon.
Oh yeah.
Was a
Probably
I would say
self-delusioner, I would say.
No, I would say he was probably self-delusioner, because like, why would you want to be a neuroscientist?
Yeah.
You're trying to get to that highest state in the system, way above everybody else, right? And then he became a self-loser. Just gave up. I'm just gonna make videos with my dog walking in the park. I don't have any responsibility. It's like, you didn't, so you're not gonna change any. That was my whole point of talking about that. It was like, look, he didn't see a solution.
Yeah.
He saw through it for a moment and then was like,
Right. It'll be interesting to see then. Yeah, it's become obvious to me as well where this is headed with the whole race for the AI, this whole American spirit thing. That became very clear from this episode.
yeah. I mean, most people won't even see it happening because they'll just participate in it. Like in our group, we'll see it happen because it is happening. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's not even a question now. The point is, everybody's moving through these stages. And what's going to happen at some point, given enough time, is that the Christians are in for a big fall. Because Christ has won. The victory is already upon us. Christ is king. Isn't that like saying we've already won? Yeah. Evil cannot win. It is already won. Like, it's game over. God wins. Like, you're literally in that point where you think you've won. That's the hubris. So we, as a collective society, moving towards this point, have to fall again. And I don't know, maybe it's not until I can't predict how that looks, but I don't want that to happen. But the point is, it's being set up for that. And so it's our responsibility to go and be the voice of reason and find people, because even if the society isn't falling in a big way, people individually along that are starting to see through, and things are happening in their lives. They start to see through it, right? So we can reach those people who are in that. It's like when you're in that sort of transition state, between levels in a way of your process. Someone can
Yeah.
intervene and be like, hey, here's really where you're trying to go, because they think the next level, either up or down, is the only thing that exists.
Right. And it's our responsibility to at least get them to self-realizer, to be explained that to. And then you can't walk the process for someone, but you can help give them context so that they can see it for themselves.
It's not even that you're just trying to get them to that next point. We have to show people the whole point. I'm not saying day one conversation. I just mean it's like, yes, get them on that path. But if you just go, I mean, it just depends. Like I've seen people come into TechnoTutor or whatever who are like, oh, I just want to get my goals and stuff, right? But then they start using their TechnoTutor and they're like, oh, it's not working because I'm not, I'm like, well, what are your goals? And they don't even really have any goals. They were just within themselves trying to be in the self-improvement point. But they didn't even have a clear, because they weren't doing it because they have a goal. They were doing it because psychologically they want to be in the high position. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't like, well, I want to build a house. So I put in my TechnoTutor, all my vocabulary. I build, you know what I mean? Like that's how I use it. I have a particular thing I'm doing. If someone's like, well, it didn't get me my goals. What are your goals? Well, I want to be happy, or you know what I mean? Or I want to lose weight. I'm like, how much weight? It's like they're basically just reacting to being fat, and they want to be not fat, and they want to be attractive, and they want to be skinny because that would put them in a higher position. But it's not, it's a vaguely defined, it's just an emotionally defined goal. So that would be the only reason you wouldn't get it with TechnoTutors, because you're not actually doing anything towards it. You're not even clearly understanding it. But then the problem is you start looking at your goals and you go, so what I like to do is help the person start looking at DIP with their TechnoTutor. And then they start to see for themselves, self-honestly, oh, this goal is totally not a real point. And that's how you then move them on to the point of, now what's the real point of what we're doing here? It's not that you can't achieve your goals. It's just, you need to look at your goals as to why do you want to achieve them? What is the starting point? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I want to make a lot of money and I want to use it to build like an e-commerce business. Like, okay, you could do that. But the question is, are you going to continue deceiving yourself that this e-commerce business is the highest purpose you could possibly have or not? Because if you start to see through that at all, guess what? Not going to work.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Can you use this process in terms of like building your vocabulary to be better at an e-commerce business? Of course, like that.
What I did.
The people who do it, just whether they're using TechnoTutor or not, the people who are successful at it have the vocabulary of it and the vocabulary of lots of other points like business and finance and blah, blah, blah. So it's not a question of whether that would work. It's just a question of, with all the pressure happening in our world, and then putting psychological pressure on you and emotional pressure, are you going to ever see through the illusion of what you're participating in and why? Because then when you do, inevitably, then you'll be like, oh, I'm so glad I did this. It was the only thing that was going to help me move past this point and not just go into some self-acceptance of something less than what I really am capable of and why I'm really here. If you stay at those levels below self, ultimately you're fucked. Right? I mean, that's what is the alternative, because it's not who you really are. You're just going to have an experience of regret when you die.
Yeah.
You're not going to heaven, that's for sure. That's not real. That's an illusion. Like, if you can't create heaven on earth, how can you create it somewhere else?
Well, I don't have to create it. It's God, right?
But you see, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what are you doing there in heaven exactly every day?
Worshiping God.
Thanks for making this thing.
And this is the whole point when we were going back and
Boring.
forth. So, but it's not even just boring. That is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe somebody's reasonable and it's like, well, no, you wouldn't just be worshiping heaven. All you'd be doing stuff, creating stuff, right? How can you be trusted to create things?
Right.
Just because you believe in God? Just because you follow his laws? Because you followed them here on earth, you didn't get it perfect and you didn't sort out anything here. How did you prove to God? And if that's not necessary, like, well, it's not about I have to prove anything here. Then why did you originally justify the reason why there's evil is because there's free will? And the reason we needed free will was to prove that we can actually be loving God and going to heaven. Like, that was the point of free will, was to somehow prove that your love for God. But how do you prove it? just through feelings? And any Christian, I guarantee you, would admit, well, no, I'm not perfectly following God. Then you're not going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Either
Well-
you use your free will and you prove that because otherwise all of your arguments about, well, when you're in heaven, you wouldn't choose to do anything evil
Right.
do you, like, ask a Christian, do you perfectly love God? Like, you're guaranteed heaven right now. And they say, yes. Okay. So you perfectly follow his commandments all the time? No. Well, then how are you guaranteed?
Well,
Okay, so then you can go to heaven
grace.
and you haven't proven that, and you can still do evil things in heaven?
He's given me grace, because of Jesus' sacrifice. Like, that's grace. So, yeah, I can make mistakes, but I repent.
Grace, okay, so let's look at that real quick. I know we got close to time, but or whatever.
Yeah.
But grace is like someone cuts you off in traffic. You go, instead of getting mad, you're like, they might be having a bad day, they made a mistake, they didn't see me, whatever. If
Maybe
I
they're
get
having a baby.
angry, yeah, like if I get angry, I could just show grace in this moment.
Yeah.
So is that what God's grace is? Like, even though you're really fucked up, he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you grace and just let you in anyways. Then what was the point of all of this? So the point was for you to exercise your free will to prove to God that he can do something for you that you can't. Even though you didn't exercise your free will perfectly. What have you done on earth? Sorry, let me back up. What did Adam and Eve do that was so bad compared to any fucking thing any person's ever done in their life here on earth?
They ate.
It
the
wasn't
wrong
even
fruit.
that bad. Why didn't we just get grace in that moment? It's like, oh, okay, you know what? You use your free will. You kind of didn't listen, but you know what? You got some grace. All right, heaven, everybody forever. Nope. No, that was not good. We got to have nuclear wars. We got to have suffering. We got to have rape. We got to have abortions. We got to have murder. We got to have drug abuse. We got to have fucking fentanyl. We got to have war, this and that AI bullshit. We got to have all this stuff, assassinations, half assassinations, all this kind of shit.
You got to see the
And then I'm going to give you,
consequences.
and then when you get so fed up, then you're going to get some grace.
Exactly. You got to see the consequences of not listening to me. You're a terrible person. And this is what it all leads to. And you know what?
It actually makes sense because in God's world, it's a blink of an eye. What we think is all of this crazy billions of years of suffering to God was just like, okay, so anyways, as I was saying a second ago, do you see why that's why you don't want to disobey me? You're like, oh shit, okay, yeah. Okay. I get it. Okay, what were the rules? Don't eat from that tree. Why? Back here we go again. You're like, what is the point of any? Like, you have to be kindergarten level of retardedness. Or I guess maybe PhD level of retardedness to think any of this makes any fun. And then you got this whole conversation over here, right? And then you go, now imagine none of that is, you don't even know about any of that. And then you go live in Saudi Arabia. And they're having a whole different conversation about what's the purpose of being alive.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole different reality.
Yeah.
And you go to some Buddhist country, and it's a whole different fucking conversation. And then you're like, well, they're just off in left field, and yeah, they're going to go to heaven anyways, probably, as long as they're good people, as long as they accidentally followed all of the things God wanted them without believing in God. So was it necessary? Like, what? None of it. Like, you actually are more fucked because you found out about God.
Well,
Like, if you had just not found out about him, but then actually were just a good person, you're going to heaven. You have a higher standard because someone's like, geez, I wish I had just been born in a fucking decent, like, Hindu family,
Cam, now that I've listened to this podcast, I realize that if I keep listening to you, I am not, God is gonna be like, God clearly does not like you. So I gotta stop listening to you because I will get cast out. And
the way I'm looking at it is like, I am saying the thing that if everybody did it would be the thing God wants.
Right. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Like, what are we saying that's bad?
Yeah.
What are we like? Get a good education. Everybody equalize. Become the best. Like, stop all abuse. Like, it's like, no. As a Christian, I believe there's going to be some abuse and poverty, but I'm going to go to heaven someday. And even though I sinned and everything, God forgave me. And it's like, you're just making excuses.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just saying, I don't know if JD Vance actually believes any of this. It doesn't really matter because from the perspective of the system, whether you believe it or you're just acting, you're still representing the point so that all the Christians can get on board with the mark of the beast. I'm just trying to let everybody know.
Woo. That's
By the
great.
way, guys, speaking of beast, I made some homemade beef jerky the other day. Holy shit.
It looked good.
I might have to make some more. I don't know if you can mail it, but if so, I'm gonna send you guys. I'm gonna make some and mail you guys some.
Was it from the cow from?
No,
It's
from
not from our cow. It's from a local farm where
Oh.
where we get beef from temporarily. Do you guys like teriyaki beef jerky?
I like any beef jerky.
you know, actually, you know what flavor we really like over
With the
here?
spicy. I want some
Mango
spicy
habanero.
or
Okay.
I want
Dude,
some
I made that
honey.
homemade sriracha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is so good, and
Yeah.
it's spicy. It's so much. That fermented hot sauce book I have, the guy's like, once you make these at home, you'll never want to buy the store version of that hot sauce again. And I was like, okay, we'll
How do
see.
you make siracha? How do you make sriracha?
Dude,
what
it's
even
not
is it?
hard.
What
It's
even
not
is
hard.
But even
I
is
don't even
it?
know what sriracha
It's
is.
literally
It's
just
not
red
pepper pot.
jalapeno. It's red jalapenos. You cut them in half. You put them in a salt solution. So like for every 2 cups, I think you put a tablespoon of salt. I could be wrong. You could look it up.
Mm.
You make the solution of salt. You put the sriracha in there with, I think maybe garlic. I can't remember what else I put in there. You can find a recipe. You put that in there, and then you let it sit for a couple weeks, and then you take it out. You put the peppers with a little bit of like a certain amount of that salt water with some vinegar, rice vinegar, and some certain amount of sugar. You blend it all up, and that's it. And it's
Jess, I
it's
hope
not
you're
hard to
thinking
do. It
of-
just takes 2 weeks because you have to wait. And like, I would send you guys some, but I just don't know if it's because it's like fermented. It's not like I've canned it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and I don't want to can it because then you're killing the whole, defeating the whole point of it. So I don't know if you could just mail it, if it can be unrefrigerated. I'd have to look it up. But when you guys come, you'll get
Yeah,
some.
yeah.
Right?
We'll be there soon.
But
Cool.
but I was thinking this morning, because when you make the teriyaki, dude, pineapple. I used a real pineapple. I juiced it.
Yeah.
Soy sauce, sugar, maybe. I don't know if there's sugar. I can't remember. You know what? I'm wondering, was there supposed to be Worcestershire sauce, or was that for something else? Because I didn't put that in there. But whatever I did, I followed the recipe, whether I got it perfect or not. I just remember something about Worcestershire sauce, but I think that was for a different recipe. Anyways, you follow that, you do it. I used all fresh ingredients, and it was like so good. I don't even usually eat jerky,
Yeah.
and it's not super stale from like, if you use the right
Yeah,
cut.
yeah, yeah.
I used 2 different cuts, and I think I used cube steak, which I didn't really like because it's like really super tenderized, so it makes it really dried out. But the one that worked, I think, was, and I have to look it up what it was called, but it was like a lean cut, and it just made it so good, so perfect. I put it in the dehydrator for like 6 hours. But my point was, you marinate it for overnight for 12 hours
Yeah.
in the stuff before you put it in the dehydrator. So I was thinking, what if I did a marinade with the sriracha?
Mm.
Do it.
And then and I'm like, I mean, the kids won't like it. That's why I was really making it for them, because they really like, and I've been buying them beef jerky, and Cindy loves the teriyaki.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and dude, they loved it. And I was like, okay. Actually, I found the empty bag because they did like a movie night last night with Katie, the 2 older kids. And I found the empty beef jerky bag on the floor in there. Like, they must have left it in there, you know. I was like, dang, they finished that pack off, right?
Dude,
Um,
beef jerky's
so-
good.
Anyways,
Very
I
good.
just wanted to
Wow.
switch subject for a little bit, but
I'm down.
yeah,
I'm down
Yeah.
for that.
so good. It's not hard to do. I just bought like $150 dehydrator on Amazon. Like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
I bought it so I could dehydrate the peppers and make pepper powder, chili powder. So now I'm filling it up because things are, slow to ripen, but I've got a jar for ghost pepper powder and Carolina Reaper pepper powder. And I'm like,
Which one's more intense? Carolina Reaper?
yeah, but the thing is, the reason why you have a Carolina powder is if you don't want to affect the flavor very much and you want it to be spicy. So you just put a little bit. So it's the same as any other chili powder, like where you would put this much of one chili powder, you put this much Carolina Reaper.
Mm.
And that was why the guy, I was listening to the story of the guy who created it, and he was telling the guy, there was some company that makes pepper sauce, and they would do 11, I think 55-gallon drums of pepper sauce to make, or of chilies, the actual pure chilies for their pepper sauce, plus the other ingredients. And the guy that makes the Carolina Reaper told him, hey, just use 1 gallon or 1 gallon drum or whatever of the Carolina Reaper. So they saved money they got the same spicy level. So it's not like it's going to be spicier because it's Carolina Reaper. It's just got more concentration of the spicy stuff. So, anyways, that was why I was like, because why do you need this shit? I'm not going to eat a Carolina Reaper, but it's like you could
Right.
literally put a tiny pinch of that pepper, of the ground pepper,
Mhm.
versus like,
sense.
a whole tablespoon or something like that or whatever.
That makes so much more sense.
It does.
Yeah,
I'm like,
this
oh,
is so, yeah.
okay.
Why were we
I
eating
just thought
those?
like people like just really fucking like spicy.
The guy who created the Carolina Reaper has a company where they sell to like these other companies that make pepper sauces and stuff.
Mhm.
That's why he's doing it. You see what I'm saying? He's trying to find the thing that you can have this one pepper where you can have, you know what I mean? So it's more cost efficient actually.
Yeah.
Oh, so now he's got this one called Pepper
Capitalism.
X. He's got one called Pepper X now, which is apparently like the next level of spiciness or whatever. But it's been around for a while, but they haven't released it.
Damn.
So interesting stuff.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
All right, so don't be a jerk.
Get into the spirit of things. Okay.
Yeah, and figure out where you're at in the process, for real, which level you're at. And every day, Guillaume brought up a really cool point too. It's like every day you'll go through the different levels, until we fully hit just fucking.
Yeah, it's not like you're
What the fuck?
actually at, but you can see generally in terms of what someone's participating in the system, you can see where all these points are at in the system. But as you're walking your process, you'll go through each point. Like you'll be like, oh, am I just creating a system so that I can have control and like just try to control people for my own self-interest only and they're trapped? Or am I actually doing this for what's best? Am I walking my destiny process just so I can feel like a good person?
Mhm.
Am I doing it so I can be the best individually? Am I actually trying to change the system? Because if you're like, oh, I'm doing my process, it's not about, changing the system or anything. No, you're literally a self-delusioner
Or a self-justifier.
or a self-justifier. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've seen this happen. You fall into these points. So you have to check yourself. Like, where am I just falling into these points and not actually pushing the point? That's why one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is like, I'm holding myself accountable in this particular context of really saying what I see and not, like not giving yourself a back door. How are you going to say all the shit we say and then go get a corporate job later?
Yeah.
That back door is
Fine
shut.
for a Palantir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, like, I don't see what we're saying as any kind of a threat to anybody. Palantir, keep creating it. Just don't
Right.
resist. Eventually they have to walk the process too. And they're gonna have to go, oh, now that we have this, it has to be done in a way, it has to be used for what's best. Because if we, not if, but you know what I'm saying, like as a hypothetical concept, if we educate the world or enough people to then change the systems and have a plan there and show them, hey, this is the solution. We don't have to control you don't have to control everybody based on pre-crime. Like, what was that quote?
The under
China?
heaven. Yeah.
Under heaven, isn't it? Allow the trustworthy to roam everywhere under heaven.
Why under heaven? Why not as heaven?
Because in China, they don't think heaven's somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Heaven is all things.
Yeah.
Because that is the
So
reality.
making it hard.
We've
for the
separated
discredited.
heaven in our minds into a separate dimension.
Yeah.
So what was the final point of self here? What was it?
All dimensions.
You can walk through all dimensions. So you can be in all heaven, everything, all at all times. Like, we have the real deal. Like, everything else is just some bullshit, watered down version of basically trying to avoid self-responsibility. Right. So if we allow it all to continue, like, we're just creating some fucked up bullshit system. I mean, it's already here. We already have a fucked up bullshit system.
Yeah.
But do we want it to be worse and worse and worse and worse until we have to, like, imagine you're like in the movie Terminator and just like robots coming for you and you're also trying to change the system. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, like, how bad do you fucking want it to be? Or like Minority Report, right? Where he has to literally go and get a new set of fucking eyeballs.
That's what I was thinking.
Or whatever,
of,
yeah.
For the
Or like
free crime
lenses
stuff.
or whatever he had to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, he's like going in the mall and it's like scanning your eyes and shit, right? Like, that's not science fiction, dude.
They literally installed that at Mall of America here, that they're scanning people's faces now at one of the main entrances. So it's like they're starting to roll it out. I mean, there's 100,000 people a day who go through that mall. So it's like, wow, that's fucking crazy. We go recruit there too. So.
All right, y'all.
Next week, same time, same place. Bye.